93.5
Watch it!
and 107.5.
Boom, baby!
The Fan.
Hey, good morning to you on a Wednesday, and a sun-splashed Wednesday, as I understand it. Not really. It is if you are Kevin Bowen, because he is still in Florida. For those of us here stuck in central Indiana, overcast, drizzly throughout the day, but no worries. We'll have plenty of sunshine that we'll bring to the radio programs. At least we hope so over the next 3 hours. Good morning to you. My name is Jake Query, and joining me today on the program, as Kevin is on vacation, it is Brendan King, who is in studio along with producer Mark Dykton. Brendan, first off, good morning to you. How are you?
What's up, Jake? Happy holidays. Hope you had a good Christmas. I didn't realize Kevin was in Florida until late last night when he texted me, but my parents live in Naples, and he's in Marco Island, so I feel like everybody I know is enjoying some warmth except for us. So
now, wait a minute. So you didn't know until last night, but yet you've known for probably, a week or so that you're going to be in there. So did you think he was just on a staycation?
Yeah, no, I thought him and Rosie Bowe and the missus were just enjoying some time together in the house. But no, that's fair. Marco Island's a nice spot.
And so I hear, right? I've never been there. I've been all over Florida, but never been there. But look, Brendan, it's funny because when we knew that you were going to be in, and you and I were kind of talking about what we could do, let's say like a week ago or so, you're kind of thinking to yourself, well, it'll be the end of the year. We could talk about like the best of the season, or we knew obviously that the Colts Raiders was going to be a big game. But I think, let's be honest, Brendan King, yesterday when the news broke about 1:30 in the afternoon, when it came out, I think it was, and it became official, I had gotten a phone call about 11 o'clock in the morning from someone saying, hey, word is that I'm hearing that Carson Wentz has tested positive and that Sam Ehlinger has already been told about this. As a matter of fact, the word I got came from somebody who had heard it from Ehlinger's camp, that he had been told, you better be ready to go because you're probably going to be playing on Sunday. Then this topsy-turvy roller coaster of news, because we found out Carson Wentz was on the list, but with the new CDC guidelines in terms of quarantine, obviously everybody knows this now, that changes the potential availability for Carson Wentz, not just on Sunday, but in addition to that, then if he stays asymptomatic, which we have no idea if that's the case. But it almost feels, Brendan, like it's like the players' honesty policy here. Hey, as long as they tell us that they're feeling okay, they're going to be okay to play and not be tested for 90 days. So the initial news sounds devastating to the Colts. Carson Wentz, one of 15 now in the last week that have gone under the COVID-19 protocols. But at the same time, I'm not certain that it's really bad news. It may be good news because you're getting that out of the way. Because let's be honest, Brendan, this felt inevitable.
Absolutely, Jake. And I mean, it happened. It's his second time on the list this year. He was on the list during preseason. And of course, we knew how that went. It was paired along with the foot injury. And then you're having the drama of if Carson Wentz is even going to play week one, which he did in a losing effort against the Seahawks. But, Jake, I'm with you. I feel like with everybody in sports really testing positive day after day and all these breakthrough cases that are coming along with the variant, you're like, oh, man, I mean, it's going to get Carson at some point. And as you said, it happens now. Maybe he's able to play against the Raiders. I guess good luck for Wentz. The fact that they changed the entire protocols yesterday, and Tom Pelissero from the NFL Network specifically tweeted about the protocols. Who does it help? It obviously helps Carson Wentz. And I think, Jake, after Wentz really, right, he wins you the game against the Arizona Cardinals on Christmas. It might be different if this happens after the 57-yard performance against the Patriots. Folks might have been like, oh, he threw 57 yards last game. Let's give Ehlinger a shot. But now that he wins you a game against the Cardinals and he played that pivotal fourth quarter, you look at this, as you said, Jake, about 1:30, you're like, man, this is bone-breaking if he has to miss this game against the Raiders.
The thing to me that is curious about this is the following. And I don't want to be doomsday prepper, I'm actually usually not a pessimistic guy. I'm probably more realistic than pessimistic or optimistic. But for perspective, I will offer this. And not to make this about me, I'm not saying that, but it gives me a perspective that I can share. As I have talked about on this show and been open about, and that's the reason why I probably sound a little bit different today, because unlike you, I'm not in studio. I'm doing this from home because I'm quarantined, because I tested positive on Sunday. Now, a couple of things that were interesting. First off, I had on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, so over the holidays and family get-togethers, I was testing myself, as was every member of my family testing themselves to make sure that we could, to be together. And I did have like kind of a tingling and a burning in my nose, like a sinus infection feel. Mm-hmm. But I kept testing negative. Then on Sunday, I, in fact, did test positive. Now, I have no idea, Brendan. I want to make clear on this. I'm not a doctor. I don't pretend to be a doctor. But I have taken I'm 3 shots, whatever you want to call it. I'm vaxxed and boosted, whatever you want to call it, as recently as a month ago getting a shot. You can mock the validity of that all you want because of the fact that I still got COVID. I have symptoms. Well, I don't now really, but I did in the beginning. I had just kind of a sinus congestion. I probably still sound a little bit congested.
Oh, you sound great.
Yeah, thank you. But in terms of, I've never had a fever. My oxygen has never dropped. I've never really had a bad cough. None of that, right? There was a small part of me, I would not have done this. But there was a part of me that was like, do I just not tell anybody this? I don't know that anybody would know. I wouldn't do that, and I called every person that I've been in contact with for 2 weeks, including, and said, look, here's the deal. The reason I say all that is because with both vaccinations, I still had, albeit very minor, I still had a little bit of symptom. Now, granted, I am not an elite level athlete. I'd like to think that I'm in decent shape for someone at 49 years old, but I'm not at elite level. I get that. I'm in a total. It's ridiculous to even put myself in the same physical conditioning as an NFL player. But whatever difference there is in physical conditioning between myself and an elite level professional athlete, I have no idea how offset that difference is by the fact that I am vaccinated and Carson Wentz is not. The reason, perhaps long-winded and circuitously, that I say all of that is because, Brendan, we are under the assumption that it's just a slam dunk automatic that Carson Wentz will have zero issue with this. Mm-hmm. And I hope for Carson Wentz, his wife, his young child, I hope that's the case. But without him being vaccinated, we don't know. He could be physically affected by this. I have no idea. But I think the automatic assumption that the timeline is the only thing that could be holding Carson Wentz back from playing football on Sunday at a high level, we're forgetting about the fact that, oh, that's right, he also just tested positive for a virus. And we have no idea how he's going to feel. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
It does make sense. But, Jake, I don't know if we'll ever find out specifically how Carson is feeling, because even if it's the 5-day window, right, that it's just been changed to, he may be eligible to play on Sunday, but we wouldn't hear from him because he wouldn't be talking to the media. The COVID positive guys don't talk to the media, obviously. So if he is good to go on Sunday, we would never hear from him. And I'm sure Frank Reich and any team official will kind of brush off any question of how specifically Wentz is feeling. So I don't think we'll ever know.
Well, I'm not saying that necessarily he would even come out and say, but
right.
But you might be able to tell him the way he's playing. I mean, if he doesn't have this thing is so weird. And again, I don't want to be naive here. I realize that 7 out of probably the 10 people that are awake listening right now.
We got 55 people on YouTube, Jake. Come on.
Hell yeah. Can you say hi to all of them for me? I don't know what picture's up of me, but I hope I look okay.
Well, what is that, Mark?
Cameron from Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Oh, that's cool. I don't like the Red Wings jersey, but that's cool. And
that's a good answer by you. With 2 Chicago guys in the studio. That's a good answer by you.
That's right. Yeah. My dad does not, by the way, have a Ferrari. All of that to be said. This thing is so weird. I know people, and it does seem like in the last week now, I mean, there are a lot of people that I know just in my social circle that all of a sudden have symptoms or testing positive. And again, I'm in my upper 40s. I mean, not at all, not even comparable from the physical standpoint to an NFL player. I get and understand that. But like I have a friend that has it, and I'm like, well, how do you feel? Oh man, I'm so tired. I just want to sleep all day long. That's not me. I would go so far as to say that I am basically asymptomatic at this point. Knock on wood. I have no idea what my next couple of days are going to be like. But for Carson Wentz, Brendan, what if he has massive fatigue? What if he, he doesn't have any? I'm sure he probably has some natural antibodies from when he had it before. Was a contact trace or whatever it was. I think it was a contact trace.
Yeah, it was close contact.
So we don't know. We just don't know. But what I'm saying is this assumption that of the 15 players that are on the Colts COVID protocol list, and I think that of those 15, what is it, like 12 or something, or 10 are unvaccinated. The assumption that every one of them, that a test is the only thing telling them that they have the virus and that's it. I hope that's true. I hope that's the case. But I just don't know. We have no idea how physically they will be changed. But we'll talk. I want to get more into that coming up here at the bottom of the hour, including getting reaction from you Colts fans on what you think about this. I mean, we had talked for a while about if this put the Colts in a bad position, what would your reaction be? And now here we are. The time has come. The other thing, Brendan, the big story that happened yesterday, and it's not necessarily of local significance, but it is of significance. There are very few sports figures. There are very few personalities in pop culture in general that have the unique ability to kind of reinvent themselves and do things throughout life in different areas that allow them to maintain the same relevance for multi-generations, but in different areas. John Madden was, he was a football player, but he was basically a practice squad guy before he got into a coaching career, winning 76% of his games, which is amazing with the Oakland Raiders, winning Super Bowl 11. So to say my dad's generation, John Madden was a legendary Hall of Fame level football coach. To my generation, John Madden was the larger-than-life, colorful personality on television that is the only broadcaster to have done the Super Bowl for 4 different networks, all 4 networks. He worked as an analyst for all 4 networks, did the Super Bowl for all 4, worked with some of the great play-by-play guys of all time, Pat Summerall being the one that I think of, Al Michaels as well, of course. And then, Brendan, I don't want to speak for you here, although I'm about to, but I'm assuming that for your generation, John Madden is as known for the video game as anything else, right?
No doubt. No doubt. And so, Jake, when John Madden retired, I was an 8th grader from broadcasting. When he retired from broadcasting, I was an 8th grader. So I didn't have a lot of time with John Madden on TV to necessarily comprehend football, right? I was just watching the game with my parents and maybe not digesting as much what John Madden, whoever his partner, was saying. And actually, it was awesome that last night somebody retweeted Fox Sports' tweet that said, hey, we're re-airing the Madden documentary that we just made this month. And it's airing at 9 o'clock on FS1. It's replacing like some kind of like Colin Cowherd year in review. So they aired at 9 o'clock. I had not seen it yet. I'm not sure if you've seen it, Jake. It's terrific. They sit Madden down, and what's cool about it is that they gathered all of the interviews that they did for the documentary and talked to Madden last, and they showed Madden all the interviews from the figures that they all talked to, from quarterbacks like Brett Favre and Joe Montana to Fox Sports execs. But, watching that, I kind of forgot that Vin Scully at one point was his partner too. But you're right, Jake, that the Madden video game really put John Madden into my life more so than a broadcasting standpoint. But again, I remember watching him on TV. But the Madden video game, I mean, the big thing I remember from that, I'm not the biggest gamer in the world, but growing up, I got that game every year. And you had the option in the game to ask John Madden for the play you want to run, and you press like the square button or whatever, and Madden gives you a play, and it usually works out. So, I mean, just an absolute legend in football and one of the biggest football guys of all time.
I shared this story on social media, but I'll tell it again because it was fun. When I worked at Channel 6, Brendan, many moons ago, The Colts were playing a Monday Night Football game. I don't recall what season or even what year, but I'm going to say somewhere around 2004, somewhere in there. And because Channel 6 is the ABC affiliate, this was when Madden was on ABC, at City Market, there was a pep rally, for the Colts Monday Night Football. And so my job, I don't know how, I was the low man on the totem pole. So I got the task of going over to the hotel where John Madden, Al Michaels, and Michelle Tafoya were staying and getting them into a car and making sure that they made it over, basically just kind of being their host, if you will, from the local ABC affiliate. So I go over there. Al Michaels was as nice as could be. Michelle Tafoya as nice as could be. And Madden was as well. All three. But so we get in this car, and of course they don't know me from Adam, but we get in the car, and we're driving through downtown Indianapolis. And John Madden, as soon as we get in this car, and it wasn't a limo, but kind of a smaller version thereof, like an Indy Connection car, John Madden sits in the back passenger side, rolls the window down, and he's got this huge head, right? And he leans his head out the window. So we're driving around through downtown Indianapolis, and Al Michaels is talking to me about Indianapolis and his memories of it. Really, really nice. And Michelle Tafoya was nice too. Madden, though, is leaning his head out the window like a dog taking in the breeze, right? And I'm like, what is going on here? And they're completely oblivious to it, as if this is the most normal thing ever, right? And I'm thinking to myself, what would I be doing if I was walking down the street right now and here comes a limo with John Madden, like Ace Ventura, hanging his head out the window? So I say to John Madden, and of course, for those unfamiliar, and I can't imagine anybody would be, but John Madden became famous for his cruiser, the fact that he traveled via bus. He did not fly. It didn't matter on Monday Night Football if they were playing in Miami, and the next Monday they were playing in Seattle. He traveled by bus. He spent the week traveling by bus on the Madden Cruiser. So I said to him, the advantage here of traveling by ground is, you can't hang your head out the window on an airplane, obviously. So I guess that fear of flying pays off in one area. And he pulled his head back into the car. And very, very nicely, not like sternly, but he looked at me and corrected me. And I never knew this about John Madden and found it fascinating. And he said, I have no fear of flying.
Right.
Flying doesn't bother me at all. I'm like, are you kidding me? And he said, no, I'm claustrophobic. I can't be in that tight of confined space. I'll lose my mind. That's why I'm on the bus, because I have more room. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess then this car is too cramped, and that's why he put his head out the window. Couldn't have been a nicer guy, larger-than-life personality, and somebody that was as – I saw Rusty Redenbacher from here in Indianapolis made a great point and said probably could not be a bigger ambassador for anybody for any sport over the last 30 years than John Madden was for the game of football. So John Madden passing away at the age of 85. Big show lined up for you this morning. We're going to have coming up at 8 o'clock this morning. We're going to obviously this Colts story is going to be a big one, and as a result of that, we will talk to Stephen Holder this morning about what's going on. Scott Agnes will join us as well. But coming up, it's a Big O Tire Sports Center update on the other side. We'll get you caught up on the other news of the world of sports and what happened overnight. On a Wednesday edition, Brendan King in for Kevin. It's Kevin and Query here, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
The Colts playoff quest continues.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs?
Yes, playoffs. Listen, as MVP candidate Jonathan Taylor and the Colts run the table on the Las Vegas Raiders Sunday.
Jonathan Taylor, big run. He's at the 50-yard line.
It all gets started with a ride to kickoff with JMV at 9.
Oh, well, they caught 40.
Kickoff with Matt Taylor at 1.
T.Y.
Your home for Colts football. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Do you need to hire? Then you need Indeed. Indeed has 135 assessments to help you find the right candidates fast. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
With an easy refinance, our clients on average save over $350 a month. thehomeloanexpert.com. NMLS number 1326241.
Join the Indianapolis Donato's Pep Rally. Choose the 150 pepperoni pizza or spicy pepperoni for just $1 more than a large one topping. Order at donatos.com. Text and delivery extra.
Get your payout before the game's out with BetMGM. Place a moneyline wager on any Thursday night football game, and if your team is up by 10 or more points at halftime, you win. That's a full payout for only half the game, no matter what happens the rest of the way. Simply go to your BetMGM account and opt in each week to the Thursday night halftime payout promotion. Want to continue wagering in the third quarter? Keep it rolling with BetMGM's extensive live betting options. Need hit the sack early? Use your winnings to place a one-game parlay on Sunday and go for Gridiron Glory. If you're new to BetMGM, download the app today and see how you can turn halftime into cash time. Make a moneyline bet on Thursday night, and if your team is up by 10 or more, you'll win at the half. Only at BetMGM. Opt-in required. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. Indiana only. Must be 21 years or older to wager. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT.
Wealth isn't simply about money. It's more than just the numbers in your portfolio or your bank account. Wealth is all the everyday things that money enables you to do, the goals you're after, the things you want to accomplish, and the life you want to lead. So how do you get there? Starting the weekend of January 1st, listen to Everyday Wealth with Soledad O'Brien and Gene Chatsky, presented by Edelman Financial Engines. Each week, award-winning journalist Soledad O'Brien and personal finance expert Gene Chatsky will explore how our financial decisions shape our everyday lives. They'll be joined by Edelman Financial Engine's wealth planners and other guests to demystify challenges like tax-efficient investing, retirement planning, and more. They'll share knowledge and tools to manage your finances today and build wealth for tomorrow. Join the conversation. Everyday Wealth airs each weekend and will be available on major podcast platforms. For airtimes, visit everydaywealth.com.
It's a new year. Time for a fresh start. Why not treat yourself to something special? Fine jewelry from Shane Company. Our design team is constantly finding inspiration around the world, filling their sketchbooks with ideas and creating new looks just for you. We'd love to show you our beautiful selection. We have all the essentials, timeless styles you can wear every day. Diamond pendants, stud earrings, tennis bracelets, fine jewelry with cultured pearls, and more. We also have exciting new styles arriving all the time. There are so many options. You can create a unique earring stack, layer rings, or build a charm necklace that tells your story. Whatever price range you're thinking about, we have something special for you. Come in and see us anytime, or set up an in-store or virtual appointment to meet with one of our expert non-commissioned jewelry consultants. Have some fun and treat yourself.
Now you have a friend in the jewelry business. Shane Company and ShaneCo.com.
This Sports Center update on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan is presented by Big O Tires, the team you trust.
In fact, it seemed as though yesterday the Colts were going to have to bring in the car to Big O Tires and maybe get a change, put a donut tire on, because Carson Wentz going on the COVID list yesterday about 1:30 in the afternoon. Of course, that began a topsy-turvy range of things that happened in terms of the NFL COVID-19 protocols, following the guidance of the CDC in terms of going from 10-day down to 5-day quarantine. That would seemingly be good news for the Colts, who, according to Stephen Holder, who's going to join us at the top of the hour, the Colts are apparently working under the assumption that Carson Wentz, in fact, will be available to play on Sunday. Now, the reason why that's of some question, if you will, or why we don't know for certain, although I'm sure the Colts do, Wentz one of 15 now within the last week to go in the COVID-19 protocol, but in terms of that 5-day period, and this, of course, is assuming that the unvaccinated Wentz is not showing any sort of symptoms from COVID-19. But in terms of the timeline of when he would be able to be within that would the test, it has to be 5 days from the test. When was the test exactly administered, and would he be available? I don't know that we have 100% clarity on that just yet, but it means there are a lot of balls in the hopper and a lot of areas in which the Colts can look at quarterback, whether that's Carson Wentz, whether it's Sam Ehlinger, who I think has been told to be ready. Here is Colts offensive coordinator Marcus Brady on the situation.
Oh, we've always think about that. You know, you always got a plan, just like we did in every other position, but especially the backup quarterback position. When, going through the plan, he goes through it and like, okay, what are your top calls that you feel comfortable with? Doesn't have to be all of them. And so we have that separate call sheet for him ready to go. He goes through all the reads just like Carson does. He may not get the live rep, but he'll get it on the side. So he's ready to go.
Talking about the preparation of Sam Ehlinger, Brendan King, reality is this. No disrespect to Sam Ehlinger, but no matter who is playing at quarterback, if it's not Carson Wentz on Sunday, and I think it probably is going to be Carson Wentz, but regardless of who it is, I would think, Brendan, that the practice would be this. See how many different ways you can hand the ball to Jonathan Taylor, right?
Yeah. I mean, they bring in some Matt Nagy Wildcat, right, Mark Dykton? I mean, any way you can to get the ball to JT. But, Jake, I don't think it's any secret that when I was doing the show with Kevin before you came along, I mean, I was definitely on Team Ehlinger as opposed to Team Eason for the backup job during training camp when Wentz had COVID the first time. So I feel entirely comfortable if it has to be Ehlinger under center, but there's no doubt of what you just said. If Wentz does not play, there's absolutely a drop-off. And I found it interesting yesterday on Twitter when the Wentz news came that people were saying give Phillip Rivers a call, because as much fun as having Phillip Rivers back in the building would be, and as great as that Hard Knocks episode would be if Phillip Rivers was signed, I mean, folks got to realize that the Colts have zero available / healthy offensive linemen right now. Rivers has just taken a year off and coached high school football, where I'm sure after high school football games there are adult beverages that follow. Who knows what kind of shape Phillip Rivers is in? He will get killed, Jake. So if Wentz does not play, absolutely there's a drop off. But if it has to be Ehlinger, I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well just go out and get Michelangelo's David and have him throw around if you're going to get Phillip Rivers, right?
Right.
No question about that. Sticking with the NFL, you just heard us talking about it, but sad news, obviously, for any fans of football and just fans of sports and life in general. John Madden, at the age of 85, the legendary Hall of Fame coach, Super Bowl 11 champion as a coach, 76% of his games winning as coach of the Oakland Raiders before a legendary broadcasting career, and then, of course, the name face of the Madden video game. John Madden passing away yesterday at the age of 85. Basketball news, Charlotte is here in the Circle City. They'll be taking on the Pacers tonight, 7 o'clock at the Fieldhouse. That'll be just a couple of hours after Purdue. We'll be wrapping up the number 3 Boilermakers taking on Nichols. That game at 5 o'clock today. Indiana's game with UNC Asheville has been canceled. So, and I think, by the way, it goes without saying right now, when you say a game has been canceled in the world of sports, it's because of COVID-19 protocols. Not weather, but for that reason. Unless we state otherwise, I guess we'd say. Indiana now will play Penn State January 2nd. That game is on to start Big Ten play. But again, the game against UNC Asheville has been canceled. Also, speaking of cancellations, Prairie View and Valparaiso within the state, that game has been canceled. Ball State and Northern Illinois schedule for today has been postponed. Can't say canceled just yet because there has not been a decision on whether or not there will be a makeup day for that. So that's what's going on within the overall look at the world of sports. Brendan, I got to be honest with you about this. I guess because I'm in the quote-unquote quarantine, I'm in the COVID-19 protocol. We talked about this yesterday, Kevin and I, but somebody asked me, they're like, well, how's your diet? How are you eating? Are you doing okay? And I kind of feel like I'm in college again. I've eaten... This morning I had some Pop-Tarts and a banana.
There you go.
I've had a lot of orange Gatorade.
Yep. Orange? That's your go-to flavor?
You know what? I wanted the Gatorade Zero. I would prefer the lemon lime, but Shannon went out to the store for me and got orange.
Okay. Well,
and then we did
you can't really say no when somebody gets stuff for you.
Yeah, and we did the whole she went to the store and then left the groceries in the garage, and I pulled into the garage. I mean, I basically. I'm treating myself like Elliot from E.T. I mean, I basically, and then a lot of, Diet Mountain Dew and water. That's basically, I did have yesterday some SpaghettiOs. That was cool.
Well, Diet Mountain Dew and water is your diet anyway.
That is correct. So my question for you is, if you were in this situation, Brendan King is quarantined. You're a Chicago guy, so I'm assuming you would probably have like a ton of hot dogs and maybe some deep dish pizza you'd make for yourself. I really don't know how to cook. What would you be getting by on if you're just stuck at home for a couple days?
See, Jake, that's the difference between you and I, is that I'm a big-time cook, and actually, I'm not sure if you know the story. I actually live back in my frat house at Butler. I'm the house dad for my old fraternity.
I did know that.
Yeah.
Which one is it?
It's the Delt House at Butler.
Gotcha.
But anyway, it's probably the best that house dad suite has smelled in the history of it, because I'm pretty much cooking every night, and sometimes I share it with the guys. But anyway, my grandparents are from Italy, so I thankfully inherited the cooking, not talent, but cooking passion of my grandmother. So that would be a lot of pasta dishes where you just go to the store and you buy like just boxes and boxes upon of like ziti or linguine, and I'd probably live off that.
So as the house dad, is that a paid position or is it just free room and board?
It is also paid, Jake. It is
wow.
It is quite the deal. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, it is quite the deal, and I plan on doing it for a while.
So my buddy Jason Venturi, whose dad is Rick Venturi, but Jason and I went to high school together. As a matter of fact, I probably mentioned this story before, but one day, senior year of high school, Jason Venturi and I are walking out of North Central High School, and there's this gathering of students in the student center, and we're like, what's going on? And there was one adult with a camera, and he says, we're taking the picture for the National Honor Society for the yearbook. Are you guys in it? I said, we are now. So the 1991 North Central High School yearbook, there's the National Honor Society, and sandwiched right in between Ned Zimmerman and Emily Masterson and Ken Shao, there's me and Jason Venturi in our jeans and flannels. But Venturi was a Delt at Butler.
Really?
And I would bet that he strikes me as the guy that probably still hangs out there. You ever get like the 45-year-old guys coming around and you're like, yeah, man, it's over?
Yeah, well, I'm sure that'll soon be me, depending on how long I do this, but the only time that happens is on Butler Homecoming, when the guys come back to like relive the good old days. But no, that doesn't happen a lot where guys show up just at the front door. It's like, hey, I was a brother here in 1992. But
no, that's pretty cool though.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It's a fun gig. It's a fun gig.
When we come back, the telephone number is 239-1070. I'm under the assumption, and maybe this has been a little tempered because of the fact that now we know that maybe this worked out, and it might even be a strategic play, even though obviously there's zero chance that the Colts intentionally got Carson Wentz to have to position to go onto the COVID list. But it turns out it might have been a good move. But we don't know yet. And we are under the assumption that Carson Wentz is going to be healthy. That's also something that we don't know. I want to know your folks' reaction to this news about Carson Wentz, and does it give you pause or concern about the playoff chances for the Colts? 239-1070 is the telephone number. Stephen Holder going to join us in 25 minutes. I'd like you to join the conversation with us next. It's Kevin and Query, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Celebrate New Year's Day with the Fiesta Rose and Sugar Bowls. Coverage begins at 1 on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Few days away from the new year, and I have got an idea for you. This is Kevin Bowen, and do you really want to go through another year with that awful joint pain? Well, you don't have to do that again. You can resolve it right now and get yourself moving again for 2022. It's time to call QC Kinetics, non-surgical regenerative treatments for joint pain. We're talking lasting results using natural biologics, no surgery, no pain meds, no steroids, no downtime. This is really exciting stuff. Regenerative treatments that actually encourage your body to heal itself using highly concentrated natural biologics. Patients rave about it for hip pain, knee pain, shoulder pain, and back pain. Don't let them keep giving you steroids, and don't let them tell you that surgery is your only option. You can get a free second opinion at QC Kinetics. You can do it now and imagine life in 2022 without pain. So call the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics, 463-235-7160. That's 463-235-7160.
A new season, a new QB, a new look. Football is back. A And so are Bud Light Blue Fridays. Every week, join JMV beginning at 3 for Cold Bud Lights, Colts football talk, and your chance to win tickets to Colts games.
Hey, it's JMV. Join me this afternoon at Westside Pub at the corner of Morris and Girls School Road for your chance at Raiders tickets.
JMV, Bud Light, and you. Doing it for the shoe.
I'll see you this afternoon at Westside Pub.
The New Year's Eve tradition continues this season.
Holiday off the screen. 6 of them tonight.
Come to our house and see the ball drop.
Levert to the top. And it's a 3 from out on the left edge.
And count down from 24.
Lets it fly and hits again.
Tip off your celebration inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse with 18,000 gold-blooded Pacers fans.
The Pacers battle the Bulls Friday at 3. Tickets at Pacers.com.
Sadly, that applause wasn't for me. It was for the #1 rated job site in the U.S., ZipRecruiter. What makes it number one? Well, ZipRecruiter knows that the general experience of looking for a job is pretty sucky. So they use tools and technology to help make it, well, unsucky. First, you create a free profile on ZipRecruiter.com. Then, they send you jobs that match your profile, plus pitch you to relevant employers to help you stand out. Crafty. If someone from that company likes your profile, they can personally invite you to apply to their job. And if you like the job, you can apply with just one click. One click. That's pretty darn easy. So easy, you could probably do it with one eye closed in your coziest leisure wear. So create your free profile at ZipRecruiter.com today. Once again, you can sign up for free at ZipRecruiter.com and put ZipRecruiter to work for you.
Hopefully, you'll never have a house or business fire. But if you do, hopefully, you'll never forget this name, Michaelis. They can be there before that lump in your throat goes away. In fact, they're the reason it goes away. Over 35 years of helping people recover from faulty wiring, lightning strikes, or that unattended pot of pasta on the stove. Michaelis crews often roll in before the fire hoses are rolled up. Their proven process of water extraction, smoke removal, and content storage will calm your nerves. Then their talented craftsmen will rebuild your home and restore your spirits. That starts by being your advocate with the insurance company. You'll find Michaelis doesn't just feel for you, they work for you. Water, storms, fire, and foundations. Life happens. Michaelis happens to help you through it. Call 844-FIX-INDY. Make it Michaelis.
Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
23 minutes before the top of the hour, Jake Query here along with Mark Dykton, who's back in studio running the big board and flying the ship. Brendan King is his Chewbacca flying alongside back in studio. And I'm stuck in the Millennium Falcon also, Falcon. I can't even speak. That's why, because I'm in the COVID hut here in the COVID protocol. Carson Wentz has joined that. And, Brendan, we talked about it earlier. I mean, this is obviously going to be the major storyline. But you tell me, Brendan King, if you agree with this.
Hit me.
It feels like at 1:30 in the afternoon yesterday when the news came out, it was, man, we are loaded for bear. I don't even have to set the alarm. I can just roll out of bed, and this 3 hours is going to fly itself, baby. But I don't know that this is going already it feels like it's not as big a story as it was some 18 hours ago. You agree or disagree?
I agree. And mainly because the NFL was so quick in changing the COVID policy. I mean, that Schefter tweet where it said the NFL is thinking about going from 10 days to 5 days, and then the NFL actually making the decision. I mean, what was that, 10 hours apart or so? So, I mean, Carson absolutely has a chance to play on Sunday. As we talked about in the first segment too, Jake, it's a matter of if he's asymptomatic or not. And again, I don't think we will figure out the answer to that question, truly. And as you said, I mean, we have seen Carson Wentz play with coming back from a broken bone in his foot. We have seen Carson Wentz get demolished by opposing defensive lines and trying to gut it out. We saw him gut it out in that game in Nashville. So I don't think we will know. And as you said, Jake, we may find out how Carson is feeling by how he's moving around against the Raiders on Sunday.
So, Brendan, my understanding is, and again, I'm not in studio, but at 239-1070, you're telling me we do have somebody who'd like to join the conversation.
We do, Jake. We've got Mike who wants to talk about the Colts situation. Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Morning, Brendan. Morning, Jake. God be with you and everybody else to get better.
Well, I appreciate that, Mike.
And this is actually Macho Mike.
I knew that was you, Macho Mike. Let me tell you something. Macho Mike of the YMCA, Indianapolis Indians, Busch Stadium, Victory Field days. And I'll tell you what, Mike, a lot of people don't realize this.
I still volunteer and do it wherever anybody lets me.
Mike, I remember, and I mention this and I embarrass you every time, but back when I was in high school, North Central High School, WJEL, Adam Alexander, who now does NASCAR on Fox, and I were classmates, and we worked the games at Hinkle together, calling basketball games. And you and, sadly, obviously, your late but never forgotten and still cherished lovely wife, Teresa,
keep her in your prayers.
That's right. You'd run the scores up and down to us, Mike. Right. And I will never forget, Mike, Adam and I, when we would do those games at Hinkle Fieldhouse, all we wanted was to feel like that we were broadcasters. And you treated us the same as you treated the guys from the television and radio stations that were doing it for a living. And I've never forgotten that, the generosity that you and Teresa showed to us. I've never, ever forgotten it.
Like I say, keep her in your prayers. And Angel, our cat, says to tell you guys hi and have a perfect day. And now about Carson, do you think can we win without Carson if he doesn't show up?
Good question. And Mike, Happy New Year to you. I appreciate the call. It's always good to hear from you. Brendan, reality is this. You and I talked about it. Let's begin by going this route with it, Brendan King. You said that you were high on Sam Ehlinger when you watched him in the preseason, that you liked him. You thought he should be the backup. Here's your opportunity, Brendan. Tell me exactly why you feel that way.
He's elusive, Jake, and he's creative in the pocket, and that's what won me over from Jacob Eason, where Eason had the big arm, but he didn't show me anything else. And I think I was in the minority at first, where we preferred Ehlinger over Eason, which I get because Eason showed off the big arm in the preseason. Then he got in the Rams game, right? And then in the fourth quarter just could not do anything on that drive, as hard as it is to end the game. But, I mean, that's where stars are made, right? If you're a backup quarterback, you dream of that situation where you get in the fourth quarter against a Super Bowl contender in Los Angeles, and you're not able to do anything. Eason gets released. He's now on the Seahawks. Not sure if he's been elevated from their practice squad. But I like Ehlinger's creativity. And look, Jake, Ehlinger, the last time we truly saw him under center was in that preseason game against Detroit. And I realize he's been in spurts kind of as the Wildcat guy. They've run a couple plays for him. But the last time we saw him truly as a quarterback was in the Detroit preseason game. And his last play before that knee injury was a 60-yard throw to Desmond Patman, breaking away in the pocket. So I want to see more of this kid. I think he's got something he can bring to the table, Jake.
You know, the other thing, and we talked about it, let's be honest here, okay? And this is the most obvious take of all time. So this one just wrote itself. But probably the player that would be the hardest to replicate, goes without saying, within that offense is Jonathan Taylor. So long as Jonathan Taylor is healthy and you see what he can do, the reality is, Brendan, that it's not going to be difficult. I shouldn't say it's not going to be difficult. It's always going to be a challenge to come in as a quarterback in the NFL. But you can, the luxury the Colts have here is if for whatever reason Carson Wentz is not ready to go, and I think he's probably going to be able to go. But if he's not able to go, the reality then becomes, look, a large part of the game plan is going to be what it has been anyway and what it's evolving into, and that is Jonathan Taylor, and then probably a little bit more of Jonathan Taylor. It's an awesome luxury to have.
It absolutely is. I mean, could you imagine being a rookie and depending on how many offensive linemen you get back from COVID as well? And, you know, prayers to Ryan Kelly, too, for the personal situation he's going through. But depending on how many offensive linemen are available for the Vegas game, I mean, if Ehlinger has to play, again, we don't know. But if Ehlinger has to play, you've got JT as your running back. You got T.Y. Hilton, who seems to be heating up at wide receiver. Michael Pittman Jr. is catching just about everything that's thrown to him. I mean, great spot to be in if you're a rookie.
Here's I hate to say the elephant in the room, but the one area that I think should be addressed. and it has been, maybe overly vociferous from some camps. But to be fair to the totality of the situation, I think this should be addressed. And that is that it is true that Carson Wentz has the liberty to make his own decisions, as we all do, in terms of what he wants to do that he thinks is in the best health situation for himself. I don't know Carson Wentz's motivation to not be vaccinated because he's not shared and expressed that. Also his right. It may be that Carson Wentz has a family health history that he determined was a risk to get the vaccination. We can argue and discuss and debate forever whether or not something like that would even be valid. I have no idea. I'm not a doctor. But is it possible? Sure. It could be that for some sort of a religious reasoning or just some sort of a conviction. I have no idea what the motivation is for Carson Wentz, but he has that right to decline taking the vaccine. I understand that. But he also knows, and I think he did know, that as the quarterback of an NFL team, that there is going to be with him more scrutiny on his decision-making on things that he does that could potentially affect the roster of his team or the progression of his team, probably more so than any other player, because the quarterback is the one player who touches the ball on every possession offensively and is the heartbeat of what is going on with the team itself. So Carson Wentz knew at the beginning of the season, when the protocol was as it was at that time, that by not being vaccinated, he was rolling the dice every single morning at the table, hoping that it did not come up snake eyes. And that if it did, he was then going to have to answer to whether or not his own personal decisions were seemingly to him prioritized over the situations that were in the best interest of his teammates and his franchise. And whether or not that decision actually turned out to be that way and it fell into that favor, we still don't know, number one. And number two, can be discussed and debated. But I think it is fair to point out that while it looks like Carson Wentz might have rolled those snake eyes and then immediately the pit boss came over and said, you know what? We actually just changed the rules here of the way this particular game is being played. Brendan, it looks like this might have fallen right into the lap, and Carson Wentz might have, for the first time, won this gamble. But it was indeed a gamble, and he was playing with fire, but it looks like he might have had on an asbestos suit. Does that make sense?
It does. And again, it's his second time in protocol. So after the first time, you're like, all right, that was close. He's able to play against Seattle, even with the foot surgery, too. So you keep your fingers crossed, folks around here, that, like, all right, maybe we're past the worst of it and that he'll be good for the season. And now with the new variant, everybody seems to get it, and there's all these breakthrough cases. And again, Jake, as you said, it's a roll of the dice, but 317-239-1070 is the telephone number. Greg talking about Carson Wentz being on the list for the second time. Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, good morning. You know, I think it's been underreported that Carson Wentz has had a great year. I mean, look at the touchdown passes to interceptions. It's far better than he's done in any year if you go back and look at statistics. And you see Hard Knocks where, you really fall in love with the guy and his family. But this is the second incident with this guy. He got contract trace, I think, the first time. Now he's symptomatic. And I understand you have a personal choice on this vaccine issue, but his decision not to do it has consequences on the franchise. He's making $25 million a year. I don't care if he has a religious objection. I don't care. His choices is impacting this team. And I just think it reflects poorly on his leadership.
I think that's a fair point, Greg, and I appreciate Greg, I think it's a great call, and let me tell you why. Because I think you point out all areas there, right? I think you're being fair to him. Yes, he has had a good year, 3,230 yards, 25 touchdowns, 6 picks. And you're right. He seems like a really good guy, good family, fun guy, and I think his teammates like him. But I don't know that it's even necessarily by any sort of a character flaw or design, but it is hard to disagree with you, Greg, that it feels like the decision can be deemed as selfish for sure. And what's interesting to me is coming off of his time in Philadelphia, that was the knock on him. I mean, if there was one thing about Carson Wentz's tenure in Philadelphia that seemed to hang over him, it was the perception or the mantra or the discussion that he was a selfish guy. I mean, that was definitely, whether that was accurate or not, I don't know. There's a lot of confliction about that. But there was discussion that Carson Wentz within the Philadelphia locker room was seen as a selfish guy. Now, Brendan, I don't think he's done anything in Indianapolis so far that makes him appear to be selfish. But I do think that he's somebody that appears to be kind of emotionally fragile when it comes to criticism of him or fan bases turning against him. And I think, Brendan, he put himself, ironically, in position here in Indianapolis to immediately set himself up to have a fan base turn against him. But I think he might have dodged it.
Yeah, and I mean, I do kind of sympathize from the Philadelphia perspective, Jake. It's just not all the way, but in a way that, like, so you're the first-round draft pick of a franchise, and you're supposed to be, you know, coming in as the Messiah and saving it and winning a Super Bowl. Well, you get hurt, the team wins the Super Bowl, they build a statue of the guy that replaced you to win the Super Bowl, and then they draft Jalen Hurts, and then what happens last year happens. So I do sympathize in a way with Wentz. I get his perspective about what happened with the Eagles, but that's why, Jake, in August, when the Colts were thinking about potentially going with a veteran backup other than Brett Hundley, of folks saying that, hey, Nick Foles is available from the Bears. And, of course, Nick Foles just won the Bears a game in Seattle, but you toss around the name Nick Foles Colts, and you're like, hey, reunites with Frank Reich, and you're like, oh, you know, he'd have to share a stall next to Carson Wentz again, and who knows how that would have gone. So I do see both sides, Jake, of Wentz probably should have handled the situation in Philly better, but at the same time of the backup wins the Super Bowl when you're having a terrific year and you get hurt, and then they draft their next guy and kind of screw you over. I get both sides.
Do you see him as selfish?
I don't. I don't. The NFL is a league where careers are shortened at times due to injury or other circumstances, and your window to be a star and, quite frankly, to make money, right, is small. So it's not every man for himself because it is a team, and every week on Hard Knocks, Jake, Frank Reich preaches that team aspect. But when you're a quarterback in the NFL, Jake, there's only 30-something of those jobs available. And that window is small. So you got to do what you got to do to put your fingerprint on the league if you want to be looked at, as I'm sure Carson Wentz does want to be looked at, as a great quarterback.
But based on that, Brendan, wouldn't you say this? And again, I want to make clear whether or not the vaccine should be mandated. We can go into that. We could sit here and do 6 hours on that. But anybody listening to this right now is saying to themselves out loud, Jake, don't go there because I hear that everywhere and I don't necessarily want to hear it here. So I get it, right? I respect that. But that to be said, if Carson Wentz knows that this is his opportunity to put his fingerprint on this franchise after what happened to him in Philadelphia, and yet he also knew that by not getting the vaccine, he was putting himself in position to be removed from his teammates and his franchise, perhaps at the most critical time when he is needed because of his conviction. And there are two ways to look at it. You can applaud the strength of his conviction, or the other is to say that means that his conviction took priority over what was the best chance at minimizing effect on his teammates and his franchise. And that latter part would mean that he prioritized self over employer, which you could deem as selfish. I'm not saying it is, but I think that there is credence there for people to make that argument.
Yeah.
I think it opens the door for it.
Yeah, I see both sides of the argument, Jake, and I'm willing to obviously hear both sides, and I think folks on each side make good points, but I'm just not willing, to go there from that standpoint of clearly the locker room still supports him, or at least it looks like it from a media perspective. So I think if you lose the locker room at that point, that's a totally different conversation. But it seems like the guys have his back, and especially Frank Reich does too. I mean, he looks at Carson Wentz as a second son.
I think that the other thing to me that is curious, and again, I want to reset for people, and I know that I've mentioned this a lot, but I'm under the assumption for those that missed it earlier, okay? So open disclaimer, I mean, I'm also in the COVID protocol. I tested positive on Sunday. At this point, I think I'm probably asymptomatic because I had kind of a head congestion cold starting basically the end of last week, and I started testing myself before going around my parents and my family for the holidays. And I tested myself Thursday, negative. Friday, negative. And multiple times on both days, by the way. Negative, negative, negative. Saturday, Christmas Day, Saturday morning, I tested negative. Then Sunday morning, really, to be honest with you, just almost out of like a boredom and a curiosity, I had a test laying around, and I'm like, you know what, I'll test myself again before I go to the mall. And I tested myself, and I was stunned. Wait, really? I'm positive? What? And I took a second one, and there it was.
Yeah.
And so I have had, over the next, of course, that was, 72 hours ago or whatever, I had like the feelings of a sinus infection. That's pretty much what it felt like, and an occasional cough, okay? But I'm looking at the rules now for the NFL, which, if I'm reading it correctly, and Stephen Holder is going to join us here in just a minute, but it says if he's asymptomatic. Well, if Carson Wentz now is basically isolated, asymptomatic according to who? Because I do notice, like, if I get up and move around pretty briskly, like, I try to move around, get some exercise, I'm doing stuff, moving, cleaning up stuff, and, I'm taking advantage of the time at home. I don't really cough, but if I do, it's after I've moved around fairly vigorously for a second. So I have no idea and I'm vaccinated. I mean, I'm double vaccinated. And I get it. People can question the validity or the strength of that vaccine. But in Carson Wentz's case, he's not vaccinated. So we're just assuming because he's in his 20s and in great health that he's going to have zero symptoms. Well, that's a big ask. That's a big ask for a virus that's going around during a pandemic to just automatically assume that because he's an NFL quarterback that his body has an immunity to fight something off. I'm 49 years old. I get it. I'm not exactly running around, like Adonis here. But I'm in decent shape. I have double vaccination, and I'm still, at one point, showed minor symptoms. So if he's asymptomatic, my only question, Brendan, is according to who?
I get it, Jake. I get it. And we will find out everything in the Carson Wentz saga coming up here at the top of the hour. Stephen Holder from The Athletic is going to join us. Zach, Brian, Steve, and Bill. 317-239-1070 is the telephone number to call if you'd like to join the program. Hang through. We will get to you. Stephen Holder on the other side. It's Kevin and Query. I'm Brendan King with Jake Query, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
School is in session.
Mike Woodson, nice enough to join us. Is there a sense of urgency in college that there isn't in the NBA at this time of year?
I think there's a sense of urgency every time you jump it up. Every game is important, and you got to push your team to understand that every game is important. There's no gimmies in the Big Ten. Everybody can beat everybody in the Big Ten. You got to come ready to play, and you got to be prepared.
Dan Dockage, weekdays noon to 3 on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
When it comes to your credit card, Discover believes in having real people available 24/7 to help answer your questions. Discover. Exceptionally common sense.
Home values have skyrocketed.
And Golden Oak Lending can save you money with their low 1.875% rate.
I'm James Hawkins, president of Golden Oak. With our low rates and your increased equity, you can make home improvements or pay off debt.
Woo-hoo! Plus, skip your next 2 mortgage payments. Call 317-706-GOLD today.
Golden Oak Lending cured my blues.
NMLS 114937. 1.875% fixed. 2.952% APR. FHA 15-year mortgage with 20% equity and approved credit. At Kroger, fresh groceries are our thing, so we check your delivery order for freshness at every step from farm to store and pick and pack every veggie in your free pickup order with care, because we treat your food the way we'd want ours to be treated. We're fresh every day, so shop anyway. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Free pickup on orders of $35 or more. Restrictions may apply.
Earn a $25 e-gift card when you spend $100 on participating diapers, laundry supplies, and more with your digital coupon. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Restrictions may apply.
Hey, it's JMV for BullseyeEventGroup.com, the Colts VIP tailgate presented by Hayes & Sons Restoration. All you can eat, all you can drink. DJ Skids, DJ Helicon, making sure you're entertained inside the Bullseye Event Center. The absolute perfect pregame party. It is the best, and you should be a part of it. Raiders in town next. You need to be there. You can also get tickets to the game. VIP tailgate passes, tickets to the game. Log on and get you some now. BullseyeEventGroup.com.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
WIBC HD2 W298BB. WIBC HD3 W228CX. Indianapolis.
The Colts host the Las Vegas Raiders. Coverage Sunday morning at 9 on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan. It's Kevin and Query.
What the hell are you doing, John? Come back and get it. Charlie, come back toward the ball. If he's coming, I'm going to engage him, and then I'm going to slip out into the screen.
Concentrate, get better. Say to yourself, I got to get better.
On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey, good morning to you on a Wednesday. My name is Jake Query. Brennan King is here as well. Mark Dighton back in studio. It is Kevin and Query on 93.5, 107.5. The Fan. Kevin Bowen enjoying a little R&R down in Florida to flush out the year. Will be back with us coming up on Monday. But in the meantime, a lot to talk about as Brennan is filling in, and that involves the epicenter of the sports news, not only in Indianapolis, but one could argue in the NFL. Joining us now on the Payless Liquors hotline, he is the NFL writer for The Athletic, friend of the program, Colts writer as well. Stephen Holder joins us. And Stephen, I'll begin with this we're going to do it this way because I was following your Twitter timeline yesterday. You and I chatted briefly, and then about an hour afterwards, I must have been the jinx because all hell broke loose for you. And if you could kind of just lay out for us the timeline in terms of Carson Wentz testing positive and what we definitively know in terms of what that means for his upcoming status and how that knowledge of status has kind of changed with ebb and flow by the hours.
Yeah, so he was disclosed to be going on to the COVID-19 list about 1 o'clock or so, and at that time now, there was still this 10-day policy in place now, where you have to sit out for 10 days if you're unvaccinated and have a positive test. Now, obviously, they were negotiating, the NFL and the union were negotiating at that time about whether they should make the change to the updated CDC recommendations, which were put out on Monday afternoon, I believe. Now, even after that, though, there was some confusion. Even though we figured that was going to happen, there still was some confusion because we didn't know when the test took place. We weren't exactly sure what the clearing process was going to be to get back. But what we know now is he was tested, I believe, on Monday, and that will give him, assuming he is not completely asymptomatic, but if he has no fever and his other symptoms have declined significantly, he can be cleared to play on Sunday. So it was really just a roller coaster sort of day, and really this whole season with COVID has been a roller coaster for the Colts. On the first day of training camp, Frank Reich tested positive, right? So from the very beginning of this NFL season, it's been a roller coaster on COVID. But this is definitely going to help the NFL get back to having a little more normalcy, which is, I think, what they ultimately want more than anything.
Hey, Steven, it's Brendan. Good to catch up, man. It was kind of quiet, right, for a few weeks there for the Colts with not a lot of COVID problems, but now it's obviously sparked back up. I know this sounds weird, and I'm sure you've gotten this question from Twitter followers or whatnot, but if this is going to happen with Wentz and he's going to go on the list, do you prefer it happens right now as opposed to 2 weeks from now?
Listen, you're not wrong for saying this. You know why? Because even the Colts privately admit this. Now, no one's going to go on the record and say this publicly, but people told me that. People in the organization said that to me. And it's a reality, okay? This thing, we're at a point now where, particularly if you're unvaccinated, this thing is going to hit you, okay? And I think there was a recognition of that. And especially right now with the Colts, they have been undergoing what looks to be an outbreak, I guess. It's somewhat of an outbreak. I don't know what else you would call it. Given the number of players on the COVID list, I think they're up to 14 players. I think that's an outbreak, right? And so they recognize that, all right, well, we can't dodge this thing, so if it's going to happen, it's better that it happens now. There's no question about that. The Colts have been exceedingly lucky. Okay, can we just call it what it is? They have been exceedingly lucky throughout this entire thing. I mean, they haven't had the sort of outbreaks that other teams have had, and they have been one of the teams with the highest unvaccinated rate as well. So they've been really lucky there. And then when it did happen, they catch this enormous break. I said this on Fox 59 last night. This was their biggest win of the season, maybe. The CDC changing its recommendations. This was maybe the Colts' biggest win of the season, and not necessarily Saturday night's game, although that was pretty big too. So there's no question they caught a break here, a massive break. There's no question. Can you imagine had this happened the Friday before a wild card game?
Yeah.
Okay, where would you be then? Sam Ehlinger starting a wild card game, by the way, is also not the NFL's idea of a dream matchup. So the NFL wins here too.
Okay, Stephen, I've got back-to-back questions here. Okay, the first is this, and I'm asking this not as a conspiracy theorist, but I want clarification if you have it, and if anybody would have it, it would be you. And that is, when a player tests positive, in other words, Carson Wentz yesterday tested positive right on the heels. Well, not on the heels of, but just before the CDC, or right around that. Well, no, it was right on the heels of when the CDC had issued this guideline. Who exactly is administering the test and determining? In other words, is the NFL coming in and testing Carson Wentz, or do the Colts voluntarily hand over that information?
There is a third-party medical company. Lab company that is on site at, I think, just about every. I think it's the same company that does it at every NFL facility. And
so there is no chance that the test. So there's no chance the Colts could have said, "Hey, we're gonna put Carson Wentz on this list now and get this over with." Okay.
I don't believe that. I don't believe it would work that way. I think it would have to involve another party being involed in that.
Okay.
I will tell you, as someone who is tested by that same third party, personally, I am. I get a notification that comes directly from the lab and not from the NFL.
Gotcha. Okay, and I appreciate that perspective. Second question, then a follow-up to that is this: what I find fascinating, as somebody myself who has COVID right now. Now, I am not a mid-20s elite level, access to the finest training and facilities in the world individual. Admittedly, open disclaimer. But I tested positive. I am double vaccinated. Okay? Did I have symptoms? Yeah. Do I have symptoms right now? I don't really think I do. A little bit. I mean, I'm a little congested in the morning. By noon, I feel and sound totally fine, in my opinion. Carson Wentz is not vaccinated. We're working under the assumption everybody just assumes that he is going to stay asymptomatic. I don't know that that's the case. He has distinct physical advantages over I. However, my question is this. When you hear Carson Wentz can play if he's asymptomatic, my question for you, Stephen Holder, is this. Asymptomatic according to who?
That is a great question. And it's, unfortunately, the NFL has not really provided an answer to that question. And that's the problem. I mean, are we putting people at risk? I don't know. I guess I don't know. That gets into the science of things, and I'm not qualified to answer that question. But I would say that it does sort of potentially open a Pandora's box. I agree. I think that's what you're getting at, and I kind of agree with that. And so here's the thing about Carson Wentz and his symptoms. I don't know what his symptoms are, if there are any. The Colts are pretty optimistic, so I can only glean from that he doesn't have terrible symptoms. However, I think we can also look at an example. I think Aaron Rodgers, if I'm not mistaken, admitted to having pretty severe symptoms for several days. He's also unvaccinated, I think, or he's immunized but not vaccinated, whatever the hell that means. But so you use yourself as an example, right? You are double vaccinated, as you said. So yeah, you're not in the sort of optimum physical shape that Carson Wentz is, but you have something that he does not, right? So I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. Now they also, to be clear, they're not even using the word asymptomatic in terms of clearing a player to return. What they are saying is no fever and major reduction in whatever symptoms you do have. So you could technically have a little bit of a cough, I guess, because asymptomatic is kind of a nebulous term. You know what I mean?
Right.
If I have a runny nose, do I have a cold? You know what I mean? I don't know. Right. So I guess that's what that is sort of acknowledging, that actually defining asymptomatic is pretty hard. I mean, if you cough once, are you symptomatic? You know what I mean? So I think that's why they're leaving it a little bit gray. I kind of understand that, but I also know that could be sort of manipulated.
Steven, let's go this route. As you said, if it's not Wentz, it's going to be Sam Ehlinger, you would presume, under center on Sunday. So it's been a minute since we talked about Sam Ehlinger at a big basis. But, I mean, obviously he won the backup job from Jacob Eason and then Brett Hundley. On a scale of 1 to 10, what's your comfort factor if Ehlinger has to be under center?
It's not very high. I think probably a 3 or 4, honestly. And it's because we just don't have any real, basis of evidence to judge him from. I mean, the preseason is such a joke that I just don't know what to make of it. I think the question did come up yesterday. In fact, KB asked it of Marcus Brady, the offensive coordinator, if and this is before we knew the news, but I think there was some rumors out there. So good on KB. But if Ehlinger had to play, what does that look like was the question. And I thought it was a great question. And Marcus Brady, I thought, gave a pretty honest answer. He said, well, we would have sort of a package, and we would obviously call plays a lot differently. He doesn't have the same arm strength as Carson Wentz. They recognize that. They recognize that he would probably be a little more of a sandlot player. Carson Wentz has some sandlot in him, but generally he's running around to find someone to throw the ball to. Sam would probably be more of a guy who would tuck it and run if the situation isn't optimum. And then he's comfortable with that. That's okay. So it would be a very different game plan. It would be a much more streamlined game plan. I think it would involve a lot of the RPO stuff that we see from the Colts. That's something that Sam Ehlinger did at Texas and is very comfortable doing. So I don't think it would be a complete travesty necessarily, but it would really, really be dependent on really dominant offensive line play in the running game and having to win some unideal matchups, I guess, at the line of scrimmage for that offensive line, because the defense is going to stack the line of scrimmage. So they've won those matchups before, though. I mean, I think Arizona did that, honestly, the other night, and they still won some of those matchups. So it would be very it would not be ideal, let's put it that way, but I do think they at least have been thinking about it, and they would have a plan. Whether it works is the question.
Stephen Holder's our guest. He's the senior NFL writer for The Athletic. I'm going to grant everybody a hallelujah here by taking away from now the strictly COVID Carson Wentz protocol Sam Ehlinger conversation by asking this. Look, the New England game was huge. We know why it was huge. It's the Patriots after all. I look at it, and I'm trying to figure out, Steven, I'm trying to determine why this game might not be as big for the Colts in terms of the postseason as was the New England game, because of the fact that if the Raiders were to win, they enter into, I believe, some tiebreaker areas that would be advantageous for them over the Colts in terms of seeding. Am I wrong in saying that this game might be bigger than people are giving it credit, maybe just because it's a team that is not the arch rival of the Patriots?
Well, I think the reason people are taking that approach is because they are working under the assumption that the Colts beat the Jaguars in Week 18. But that is a dangerous way to look at this, okay? The Colts, first of all, and I'm not suggesting they're not going to beat Jacksonville, but, I mean, are we now just penciling in wins over Jacksonville on the road? Because it's been a long time, okay? I'm just saying. When was the last time the Colts won at Jacksonville? I probably had less gray hair in my beard, okay? So I got a lot now. So I think that's the real reason people are looking at it in the way you described. That is obviously a mistake. And it's also a mistake for the other reason you mentioned, is because the Raiders are, if they win out, they become a factor in this playoff picture. If you're the Colts, what you need to do is to basically eliminate the competition. And the Raiders are part of that competition. I think the Colts are okay. They're sitting in the 5th spot. I don't think they can win the division. So even if they lose, I understand the impact of the loss is not as great, assuming they beat Jacksonville. But at the same time, don't put yourself in that situation. Do you really want to go into week 18 needing a win? And they could lose out and still get in. There is a scenario where that could happen, but I mean, who wants that? Who wants to live that scenario? So I just think if you want to control your destiny, then go ahead and do it. That's what I say.
Steven, this is my last quarterback question. So I know the name Phillip Rivers was getting tossed around early yesterday, and I think, as I said earlier, as fun as that would be to cover, and as great as a Hard Knocks episode as it would be to have Phillip Rivers in the building, I mean, this guy just got done coaching a high school football season. Who knows what kind of shape he's in? And then the Colts have 0 available starting offensive linemen. He would get killed.
I don't think it's an ideal situation either. I really don't. And I think that's also the question. Like, Phillip Rivers would really, really have to have his heart set on doing this, because it's not just like, all right, I'm going to get up off the couch and put the 6-pack down. I don't even know if Phillip drinks, but whatever.
With 9 kids, you probably have to, right?
That's true. But let's say he's drinking root beer and watching football. You have to really be motivated to get up off the couch and go do that for a living, okay? I mean, you talk about flipping the switch. I mean, I don't know. I have no idea. Phillip Rivers loves football, obviously, right? He's going to coach high school football. That's his dream. So he's doing that. So he loves football. But it's the one thing to love football. It's another thing to go from that extreme to the other extreme, which is being at home with the family during the holidays, to, all right, I'm going to go play on Sunday. I mean, I love Drew Brees and the response that he apparently gave when he was asked on whether he was interested in playing for a little bit. Allegedly or reportedly, he sent a picture back of him on the golf course, which is his way of saying not no, but hell no. So, I mean, that's probably where I would be if I had untold millions and had the opportunity to enjoy myself. I probably am going to say I'm good. So I don't know what Phillip Rivers' response would be, but I can tell you that that's not really something the Colts are looking into very seriously. Even before we knew the news about the NFL changing the timeline, even at that point, from what I was told, the Colts were still sort of like, yeah, not really. It just they didn't really see it as a real practical approach to this thing, and they were more likely going to go with Ellinger. So I can only imagine that the vibe from Phillip Rivers maybe hasn't been too strong.
But I wanted to clarify something, Stephen, that you had. Stephen Holder of The Athletic is our guest on the Payless Liquors Hotline. You had this tweet yesterday, which I thought was an outstanding bit of information that you came across, and that was you were, correct me if I'm wrong, you are under the assumption from your sources within the organization that the Colts are proceeding as if Carson Wentz is going to play on Sunday, correct?
That is correct, yes. I have a source telling me that. It's a very good source. I won't name the source, but that's my understanding. They are, they always leave the door open for something to change or for things to not go as planned, because you can't count on that, right? But assuming things go as they anticipate, then yes, they are proceeding like Carson Wentz will be able to play. That's correct.
Okay, lastly, Stephen, I wanted to ask you about this before we get to our Big O Tire Sports Center update. One of the main news stories of today, I thought last night Rusty Rudenbacher, who is, an Indianapolis musician and DJ, had a really, really good tweet that simply said, in all aspects and areas, John Madden might be the biggest ambassador for the game of professional football of the last 40 years as there was. John Madden yesterday passing away at the age of 85. I think that's a fair statement. Would you agree that when you figure the all-encompassing areas in which he transcendently touched multiple generations and backgrounds, we're talking about one of perhaps the biggest giants in the game, would you agree, that we've seen in our lifetime?
Unquestionably. Okay. I'll tell you my own personal experience. So I am 45 years old. I don't remember John Madden as a coach because I think his last year coaching might have been, 77, 78, something like that. So I think the Raiders won it. I think the year I was born, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Super Bowl 11.
Yeah, so there you go. So anyway, I have no recollection of John Madden as a coach because I was like 3 years old. And yet, he is such a major force and has been such a major part of my football fandom growing up that it's undeniable what you just said. So even without me having any recollection of his coaching career, which was fantastic, he still has been a huge presence. All right, so I can remember, my Sundays growing up consisted of him and Pat Summerall, okay, watching them and watching those Cowboys games. I became a huge Emmitt Smith fan. I remember this in high school and college, in part because of watching John Madden and Pat Summerall on Sundays. The Cowboys were always on, and I had an Emmitt Smith jersey the whole nine, So I think back to that, and when I think about games that Emmitt Smith played and I enjoyed watching, I think about John Madden's description of his performances. And then for generations beyond me, obviously the video game was huge. So he's had an impact on certainly my dad, I'm sure, watching football before I was born, then impact on me, and then an impact on my son growing up playing Madden, okay? Because when he was like 10 years old, all he wanted for Christmas was the newest version of Madden, right? And so I just think that, for someone to have that kind of impact on multiple generations of fans, there's no question. Who has had a comparable impact in other sports? I can't even think of someone, So who would be that person in basketball? Maybe Michael Jordan. That's really it, between his impact on the shoe culture and in the game, et cetera. But, you're talking about a guy who's in that category, I think, in the NFL, in John Madden.
I would say Barkley or Shaq would be the only two that even come to mind, but
maybe
because they get a little bit ubiquitous within pop culture, but they don't have neither one of them, and even Barkley, I don't know that they have the colloquially, just the colorful nature, if you will, of a Madden. He was like a caricature larger than life, no question about it. Stephen Holder, senior NFL writer for The Athletic. Appreciate the time, Stephen. I know it's been obviously a very busy time, and we look forward to talking to you again, all right?
All right, you got it. Thanks, guys.
All right, Stephen Holder on the Payless Liquor Hotline. Time now for a Big O Tires Sports Center update.
This Sports Center update on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan is presented by Big O Tires, the team you trust.
Brendan, we can do this in abbreviated fashion. I'm going to give you the category. You tell me which one you want. We got NFL, we've got NBA, we've got college basketball. Which one jumps out at you first?
This is my favorite game. I think you got to go NFL.
NFL, okay. We have COVID news, we have non-COVID news. Which would you like?
Well, we just spent a lot of time on COVID, so can we start with non-COVID news?
Okay. Non-COVID news. There's 38 guys on the Colts that are not on the COVID list. Okay. Do you have another topic that you'd like that covers our non-COVID news?
Is there anything else?
There was a bowl game last night.
There you go. Yeah, no. Did West Virginia or Minnesota win? I fell asleep.
You know, I don't actually know that. There's a guy I follow on Twitter that has some major beef against West Virginia's coach.
Oh, my God. Who's their coach?
It was just Neil Brown. And I was like, Neil Brown's a hell of a dude. He's a great chef. The dude has
Neil
like
Brown
awesome restaurants.
He's the coach of the Western Michigan or West Virginia?
Okay, so last night, I don't know.
Minnesota won 18-6, by the way.
Look up West Virginia's head coach. Who is West Virginia's head coach?
That's it. I mean, that's a great. You might want to give out a Jiffy Lube prize pack just for that.
Well,
by somebody.
Google that
yeah,
real
Neil
quick.
Brown. I've never heard of Neil Brown.
So last night on Twitter, somebody's going after Neil Brown, and Neil Brown in Indianapolis is the most, like the highest grade chef and the most innovative food guy in the city of Indianapolis.
Where does he work?
And like the nicest dude in the world that's philanthropic and feeds the homeless. And I'm like, man, what's this guy got against Neil Brown? And then I realized it was the coach of West Virginia. Yeah. So there you go. There's your news in college football. NBA tonight, Charlotte is in town. And I'm sure they're listening to the local radio thinking, who are these guys? Taking on the Pacers tonight, 7 o'clock at the Fieldhouse. Brendan, your level of interest in the Pacers-Hornets game?
Mid, just because I have a Butler diploma, and I'm always down to watch Gordon Hayward. So that's probably the biggest reason.
See, the Pacers have unfortunately fallen themselves into the purgatory now.
Yes.
That they were in when I was a kid of promoting the star of the other team that is coming into play.
Yeah.
When that happens, that is not a good sign, unfortunately.
No.
Not a good sign.
No, that is no bueno. I was at the Bucks-Pacers game after the Colts played the Bucks, ironically, and the amount of Giannis jerseys in the lower bowl, and anytime Giannis dunked the ball, I mean, it was loud.
Yeah, I mean, no question about it. By the way, back to the Colts. Mark Dykton, get ready here because I'm going to call for a soundbite, which we do. That's radio term every once in a while on a Big O Tire Sports Center update. It is true. Carson Wentz on the COVID-19 list. Not for certain whether or not he will be available for the Colts showdown against the Raiders on Sunday, although, as we talked about just then with Steven, the ebb and flow of the changes of the NFL COVID-19 protocol may benefit the Colts and their quarterback, but they may have to go with Sam Ehlinger should Carson Wentz be symptomatic. Marcus Brady, Colts offensive coordinator, his thoughts on what happens. Is Sam ready for the call should it happen?
Oh, we've always think about that. You know, you always got a plan, just like we did in every other position, but especially the backup quarterback position. When going through the plan, he goes through it and like, okay, what are your top calls that you feel comfortable with? Doesn't have to be all of them. And so we have that separate call sheet for him ready to go. He goes through all the reads just like Carson does. May not get the live rep, but he'll get it on the side. So he's ready to go.
All right, college basketball, Brendan King, go ahead and pick the category. Games that are happening or games that aren't? Which one would you like?
Give me some games that are happening, Jake.
Games that are happening. Okay, that would be Purdue, the number 3 team in the land, hosting Nichols. That game, and by the way, I don't know if you know this or not, but afterwards, some of the local, this is what they should do. Some of the local bars should do like nickel beer night tonight for the game. I don't know if that would work out or not. They probably don't want people packed into the bars right now during COVID. But Nichols at number 3 Purdue, that game taking place at 5 o'clock today. In terms of games that are not happening, Ball State and Northern Illinois has been postponed. That game already had been postponed previously. There is no yet determined makeup date. In terms of the state, Prairie View and Valparaiso, that game has been canceled. My understanding is that Prairie View, since they had made the trip, just went out to northern Indiana and now are spending the time looking over fields just to get a Prairie View before they go home. UNC Asheville and Indiana. Thank you. That game also canceled. The 10-2 Hoosiers now will not play again until January 2nd against Penn State. When we come back, 239-1070 is the telephone number. I want to continue that conversation and get you folks engaged in it in terms of your thoughts, your reactions, disappointment, encouragement in terms of Carson Wentz and this Colts news. You're listening to Kevin and Query, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Sadly, that applause wasn't for me. It was for the #1 rated job site in the U.S., ZipRecruiter. What makes it #1? Well, ZipRecruiter knows that the general experience of looking for a job is pretty sucky. So they use tools and technology to help make it, well, unsucky. First, you create a free profile on ZipRecruiter.com. Then they send you jobs that match your profile, plus pitch you to relevant employers to help you stand out. Crafty. If someone from that company likes your profile, they can personally invite you to apply to their job. And if you like the job, you can apply with just one click. One click. That's pretty darn easy. So easy, you could probably do it with one eye closed in your coziest leisure wear. So create your free profile at ZipRecruiter.com today. Once again, you can sign up for free at ZipRecruiter.com and put ZipRecruiter to work for you.
Join Mark Patrick seminars and lose the weight guaranteed. Only $49.99. Hypnosis to destroy unwanted cravings. Also, stop smoking with Mark Patrick. Lose your desire to smoke without cravings, irritability, weight gain, or your money back. Seminars Thursday, January 20th at Holiday Inn in Carmel. Weight loss seminar 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. Stop smoking seminar 8 to 10 p.m. And Saturday, January 22nd at La Quinta Inn and Suites in Indianapolis. Weight loss seminar 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Stop smoking seminar 2 to 4 p.m. Registration begins 30 minutes before seminar.
Hi, I'm Ryan Kelly with thehomeloanexpert.com. These days, everything seems to cost so much. How are you supposed to get by with prices so high? Here's an idea. Mortgage interest rates are sitting near these all-time low levels. And with an easy refinance, our clients, on average, save over $350 a month. Start saving today and apply online for your easy refinance at thehomeloanexpert.com.
The Home Loan Expert LLC, NMLS number 1326241.
The Ride with JMV.
Colts running back Jonathan Taylor, what were you looking at during that 67-yard touchdown run when you were looking off to the side?
Just making sure I didn't see anyone on the sideline pointing down, telling me to go down before I crossed the end zone.
You're running 23 miles an hour, and you're looking at the sideline to see if you should go down or not.
You don't want to be that guy who scores when you're not supposed to.
The Ride with JMV.
Weekdays 3 to 6
on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan. It's Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Rolling along on a Wednesday morning, I stepped out just for a second there. My apologies to check on my Twitter mention. Somebody said that I sound like Donald Trump promoting the vaccine. That's the first time I've gotten that, so that's cool. I mean, nothing like ending the year. You look at it, I'm just like, oh, my goodness. Royce Cheetah, who I like a lot, Royce made a very good point, and it's a very fair one. And I want to make clear, and I appreciate Royce actually calling me on this. And he was like, look, be careful downplaying your symptoms because you don't want people to downplay COVID. I totally understand that and respect that, and that's a fair point. And hopefully, Royce, I had mentioned earlier that that's the crazy thing about this. Listen, I am for people getting the vaccine, but I understand that some people may have hesitation in doing that, and that is their choice. It goes back to the Voltaire quote. I may not agree with a thing you say, but I defend to the death your right to say it. I personally took the vaccine and took it twice. Did I think that was going to stop me from getting COVID? I did not. Did I think that was going to assist me should I acquire the virus? I did. Does it appear as though that is the case? I guess we'll never know how my body naturally would have reacted to it, but I have been very lucky so far, knock on wood, not to say that this is the case. It is very possible that I could take a turn for the worse. I understand that. This is an illness and a virus that has wild inconsistencies in how it affects people. And you absolutely, in my opinion, need to plan for the worst case scenario and be prepared for that. Like I always say, it wasn't raining when Noah built the ark. So very good point from Royce. And while I have been fortunate, I am not in any way, shape, or form naive enough to think that that is the case for everybody. I certainly hope it is, and I hope it stays that way for me, but we just do not know, bottom line. 239-1070 is the telephone number. Good morning to you. My name is Jake Query. Brendan King here as well. Mark Dykton running the big board. And Brendan, we have callers that would like to join the conversation, correct?
We do, Jake. I just wanted to update you on your photos on the microphone that Mark has put up. In the last hour, you have been Biff Tannen, you have been Hulk Hogan in a tutu, and you are now a hockey player with the worst mullet I have ever seen.
Okay. I had a mullet back in 1990, so that's cool.
I'm sure it looked great. Anyway, 317-239-1070 is the telephone number. Brian's up at 317-239-1070. Go ahead, Brian.
239-10. Jay, why do you keep making a huge deal out of this? You have said 10 times over and over and over again about Carson Wentz and this narrative about him being selfish. He's having kids, and kids are more important than the NFL. Are you doing that for ratings, or are you just being fake media guy because it's unnecessary and ridiculous as your corny jokes?
Brian, let me ask you a question. First off, it's Jake, not Jay, and turn down your radio, which is the first thing you should do when you call on a radio show. But just out of curiosity, what do you do for a living?
Hello?
Yeah, what do you do for a living, Brian?
I'm an Uber driver. I'm an Uber driver.
Okay.
Yep.
So as an Uber driver, and I appreciate that you listen to the program, as an Uber driver, I've never driven Uber. I think it'd be a fun job, actually. It'd be pretty cool. But
it's like speed dating.
Yeah, I'll bet it is, right? Like, you probably meet some pretty cool people, actually. But because you've done it and I haven't, I wouldn't say, so why are you driving your car a certain way? Well, I don't know. There's probably protocols that, Uber has you doing, right? I know this is going to be stunning, but my job is to talk about sports in Indianapolis. And so my job is to talk about sports in Indianapolis is to talk about the issues or the storylines involving the athletes and the teams in Indianapolis.
Right, but you've said the same thing 10 or 15 times in the last 2 days. Why are you drilling that into people's heads as opposed to talk about what success he's had and why he's doing well, and the fact that he actually got a break and he's not going to miss the playoffs?
I think I actually said all of that. I've said all of that. I said that he's thrown for 3,200 yards, 25 touchdowns. Matter of fact, I've said repeatedly, and I would love for people to repeatedly, I've said, I've been bullish on Carson Wentz. I've been actually a defender of Carson Wentz, and I think I've said 1,000,000 times, Carson Wentz absolutely has the liberty to make his own decision. And matter of fact, I even said, I understand that some people, whether it's a family history, that I certainly get that there are those that may choose not to get the vaccine, but in doing so, they are setting themselves up for the potential of criticism. Whether that criticism is valid or not, I don't know that. But I'm saying Carson Wentz knew going into it that he was putting himself in a position to be criticized if things went awry with his decision. And then I said, it appears as though he might have dodged that because of the new CDC guidelines. Credit to him for that. And I hope that he remains asymptomatic. We don't know whether he will or not. I think I've been very fair and balanced across the board on it. I guess Brian's gone. 239-1070 is the telephone number.
Says he's on the air, but yeah, I think that was a good rebuttal, Jake.
Who's next?
Zach has been on the line for a while, Jake. He wants to talk about Phillip Rivers as a possibility that Phil may be back in the league. Go ahead, Zach.
So, first, good morning, guys. And if we do sign Phillip Rivers or somebody else, if they don't believe in the backup, do you think we're going to sign them to maybe a 10-day or extend it to the end of the year?
I think it's a fair question this time yesterday. I think it's kind of out the window now, to be honest with you, Zach. To answer your first question, I think it probably would be the minimum that they would have to sign somebody, but I don't think they're going to go that route because, and again, with all proper apologies to speed dating Brian, The reality is I'm just speaking to the totality of the situation. I'm making sure that I'm covering all bases on all possibilities here when it comes to Carson Wentz, okay? And when it comes to Carson Wentz, and I don't know, I think Brian might have me confused with other media people, but when it comes to Carson Wentz, the reality is that we are working under the assumption that he remains asymptomatic and has no issues. And I certainly hope that is the case. And one would assume because of his physical conditioning, that very well may be the case, but we don't know that. So I think they are working under the assumption, Brendan, would you agree that Carson Wentz is going to be under center against the Raiders on Sunday? And if he isn't, that would be the only game he's not there, and therefore Sam Ehlinger is your one-game stopgap.
Sure sounds like it, Jake. And again, I thought that was a great question by you to ask Steven about how this is a sneaky big game. And even though that the Raiders, John Gruden obviously is not their head coach anymore. That feels like forever ago that happened, by the way. They're still a talented club. And you know what the thing is, too, Jake? Darren Waller is one of the best tight ends in the league. And he is questionable now to play this week. He's been out the last 4 or so games with a knee injury. And he is absolutely huge. And then under center for the Raiders, Derek Carr, Jake, there are only 3 guys in the last few years that have thrown for over 4,000 yards each year over the last 3 campaigns. Derek Carr is one of them. Who do you think are the other 2, Jake?
Okay, repeat the question again. Guys that have thrown for 4,000 yards, how many consecutive years?
3.
Boy, that's good. Mahomes?
Yes.
I'll go with Brady just because it's Brady, but I feel like he's not a big chunk yardage guy anymore, but I'll go with Brady.
That is correct. Derek Carr, Tom Brady, and Patrick Mahomes.
I think Carr is a nice player.
He's a really sneaky good player.
He is, and I think he's a good leader. I like him. The Raiders the Raiders are enigmatic. I mean, they're kind of a sexier version of the Dolphins in the fact that you don't really know what you're getting from one game to the next.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? By the way, I will say, I can't disagree with Brian in the fact that I'm a fake media guy because I keep waiting for them to tell me that I'm not really doing this for a living. But it's kind of weird because after 23 years of getting a salary and a 401k and credentials to sporting events as a media member, like that feels kind of real. So I don't know how fake that is. But if I want to be labeled as a fake media guy, that's cool. I'm cool with it, right? I'd like to know the definition of what a fake media guy is.
Yeah, I don't know that either, but
yeah, that's cool.
317-239-1070 is the telephone number to call. It's Kevin and Query. Chris is on the hotline. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, good morning. Hope you're feeling better. Just wanted to piggyback off the last caller. Not really piggyback. I think it's funny that we even brought up Phillip Rivers' name in this whole situation. He was barely serviceable last year at the end of the season. Couldn't throw the ball over 40 yards, and yet our fan base thinks that we should sign him for 10 days as a contingency plan, which is completely ridiculous. I think I'd much rather go with a unprepared Sam Ehlinger than a guy that's been coaching high school football for the last 6 months, probably completely out of shape, and his arm is probably more of a wet noodle than it was last year. And then secondly, I appreciate the talk at Carson Wentz. That's our hometown guy. It's your job to talk about him. I get it. Kind of like you said to the last caller about Phillip Rivers, I think it's kind of a moot point. I mean, the protocol changed in the NFL. If he misses a game, he's missed no more than anybody else in the NFL that's been fully vaccinated. We haven't had the conversation about them being irresponsible or responsible or making a choice for their personal health or reasons. So, I mean, I get that we have to talk about something here, but I think it's kind of a moot point. I mean, at the most, he's going to miss one game against the Raiders, which I fully believe that if we hand the ball to Jonathan Taylor 35 times and let Ehlinger manage the game with short passes and out routes, we're going to win that game. So I just like I said, I hope you feel better. I don't think you're a fake media guy. I think that I'm a fake media guy because I have no credentials to even be talking about any of this stuff.
we probably, and listen, but that's the beauty of sports, man. The beauty of sports is that, yeah, I've been lucky. I know that. But, we're all just sitting here at a sports bar hanging out and talking sports. That's the whole point of it, right? That's the entire purpose of it. Look, like I said, you're right. I mean, that's the bottom line. You're right, is the fact that it looks like Wentz, and I hope that Carson Wentz gets through it without any symptoms. I don't know. The thing to me that is the most fascinating is that all of this is contingent upon, whether it's Carson Wentz, whether it's a defensive lineman for the Broncos, whether it's the punter for the Seahawks. The new guidelines for the NFL, Brendan, say that a player, if they are asymptomatic, can return after 5 days. And my only question is, asymptomatic according to who? Does somebody go and watch them in an incubator and then go, well, they coughed 3 times in 5 minutes, so they have symptoms? Or do they just, is it up to them to say, because NFL, I got news for you. NFL players, if you walk up to them and say, I mean, look, the whole this is the concussion discussion all over again. This is concussions of 2008 brought all the way back into a different discussion now, because then you were hearing about players that they were saying, do you feel concussed? No, I feel fine, because they want to get out there and play. So asymptomatic according to who? That's my question. And I don't know that we know the answer to that.
And again, I don't think we'll know that answer too, Jake. It's just something that we're going to have to figure out, just like the last protocols. And I'm sure there's going to be some guys that kind of sneak around the edges and maybe are playing when they're not supposed to. But look, the protocols are what they are now. And if you can come back in 5 days, whether you got the shot or not, I mean, guys are going to find a way to play, Jake.
Yeah, no question about it. No question about it. But it's part of what makes it fascinating. Who we got next, Brennan? Or do we?
I think we got to take a break, Jake.
All right, we're going to switch.
We got
gears,
Joe on the other side, though.
All right, Joe, we'll get to you, and we are also going to talk a little bit of basketball. We're going to do that at the top of the hour. Pop quiz at 9:30. It's Kevin and Query on a Wednesday, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Hun, have you seen this internet bill? Why'd the price go up?
I don't know. Did you change anything?
No. Did you? You switched us to those fancy coffee beans. Maybe you're on a roll, making everything more expensive. Did you suddenly inherit money you didn't tell me about?
Whoa.
If your internet bill is giving you trust issues, you're not a bad partner. You just need a straightforward price.
Maybe we switch to decaf.
Get AT&T Fiber. Equipment fees are included, and with no price increase at 12 months, there are no surprises. Limited availability in select areas. Visit att.com/faster.
Planning to get engaged this year? Come to Shane Company, where shopping for an engagement ring is like nowhere else. Our jewelry consultants don't work on commission. They'll take the time to listen and give you personal attention. They'll help you maximize your budget and show you all the possibilities for the ring. Because we have more rings than anyone else, it'll be easy to find a unique engagement ring no matter your price range. Choose from a variety of styles, classic, modern, or elaborate and detailed, all designed by our in-house team. Then, for the center stone, we have the state's largest selection of diamonds, rubies, and over a dozen colors of sapphires, as well as peach morganite and aquamarine. All of our stones are conflict-free and natural. We'll make finding the perfect engagement ring fun and easy. Now you have a friend in the jewelry business. Shane Company and shaneco.com.
Now, you don't get to play as much as the offense and defense, but it must be cool to be called special teams. It just sounds good. What team are you on? The special team. That's tight, right? Oh, if you're a fan of special teams, you can just bet on those. My sportsbook app has prop bets, so have at it, people. It's a special app, people!
Must be 21. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT.
This is for the men who never settle, the ones who believe only quitters end a game in a tie, the type of guys who choose the bar with the biggest TVs to overcompensate for theirs at home. This is the Lodge mentality. This is Twin Peaks.
Are you a fan of Twin Peaks? Sign up for their e-club to stay up to date on all things Twin Peaks and score free stuff. Signing up is easy. Visit TwinPeaksRestaurant.com/Peaks-Club. Twin Peaks. Eats, drinks, scenic views.
Home values have skyrocketed.
Which means, even if you refinanced in the last year, you can still save money with Golden Oak Lending's low 1.875% rate.
I'm James Hawkins, president of Golden Oak. With our low rates and your increased equity, you can make home improvements, eliminate your mortgage insurance, or pay off those holiday credit charges.
Woohoo! Call 317-706-GOLD today and skip your first 2 mortgage payments.
And remember, if we can't close your loan, the appraisal is no charge.
Golden Oak's low 1.875% rate is as good as money in your pocket. Call 317-706-GOLD today and start saving.
Golden Oak Landing cured my blues.
NMLS 114937, 1.875% fixed, 2.952% APR, FHA 15-year mortgage with 20% equity and approved credit.
Indy's #1 for new country is 97.1 Hank FM.
Maybe some things last forever after all. I hope it won't feel as sparks by the end of the drive. It was your country song.
Starting your day with 97 minutes of commercial-free new country every weekday morning at 8:30 with Joey and Mindy. More new country and fewer commercials means more of this.
Hey, it's Luke Combs.
This is Carrie Underwood.
Hey, y'all, it's Luke Bryan.
Indy's #1 for new country is
97.1 Hank FM.
Soccer Saturday featuring Indy 11. If this is your football, this is your show. Saturday at 9 on The Fan.
Of the hour, which means 10 minutes before Scott Agnes of Fieldhouse Files joins us to talk NBA. Brendan King is in with me. My name is Jake Query. Kevin Bowen is down in Florida. We'll be back for the shows as we begin them in 2022. And the wildly talented and sometimes underused Mark Dykton is running the big board. Mark, you are in there this morning, right? We haven't called on you much.
I'm here, but I had to wear pants today because we have Brendan in studio. So
why is that a rule? You can feel comfortable with me.
Oh, all right then.
Has it been lonely in there the last few days, Mark?
A little bit. I mean,
wait, was KB doing the show on?
He was on Comrex, so he was out in Florida on.
He had the Comrex in Florida?
Yep. So
he had to fly with that thing?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They probably thought he had like government secrets in his briefcase.
I was going to say he's about to steal the Declaration of Independence or something.
No, he was.
So Mark,
it's just been me, but no pants the last couple days. I wore them today though.
You know, they probably don't like us necessarily completely divulging the way things work, and there is a magic in radio that is kind of theater of the mind. But I think that for our listeners, I've always been kind of just a transparent guy. So give us a glimpse a little bit for those that are unfamiliar of, especially the last 2 days before Brendan was able to join you in studio, of exactly what we're dealing with here and kind of the different irons in the fire that you've got going while you're sitting there flying the Millennium Falcon.
Well, I mean, I'm communicating to both of you guys on remote, so that's been fun because you guys can't hear each other during breaks. And then I've been having some fun. I had to keep myself entertained. So the last couple of days I was rocking the random pictures of you guys for the YouTube chat and everything. So that's been a big hit. So they've enjoyed that. I'm continuing it today, and it'll go for tomorrow. Right now, you're currently rocking Peyton Manning sniffing smelling salts on the sideline in a Broncos jersey. That's who's representing Jake Query right now.
I mean, you know, the smell was good. You know, I can't do my Peyton Manning as well now that I'm a little congested. But typically, I can do a decent Peyton Manning. But to do a Peyton Manning, you got to get like a really wet, saliva-induced mouth, and I just can't necessarily do that right now.
And have a large forehead. I mean, how large is your forehead compared to?
Is anybody's forehead the size of Peyton Manning's?
That's a great question.
You have to be able to inhale chicken really quickly during the commercial break as well.
By the way, the Manning cast, we talked about this, Mark. You had a list of the game. They only have one left, right? Or are they done now?
No, it's part of the Monday night finale this Monday, so it'll be the last one. Last Monday night game, it's also the last Manning cast. I don't believe they're doing a Manning cast for the wild card game that ESPN gets, unless I'm mistaken, but I have not heard that.
And that game this Monday that will be the last one, is that Packers-Vikings?
I believe that's the Sunday night game. The Monday night game, let me look real quick. I think the Monday night game is like something it's Browns-Steelers.
Ooh.
Yeah, boy.
Ew. That's not as sexy as it used to be.
Yeah, I was going to say, if it was 1979 and Brian Sipe and Sam Ratigliano were figuring out how to beat the steel curtain, that might be something. But I don't know about now. Like, okay. Speaking of that, Brendan, let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
Quarterbacks in the NFL, like I said, I've been fairly bullish on Carson Wentz. I think he's played well for Indianapolis. But NFL the quarterbacking position to me is fascinating. Look at Carson Wentz and the way that he came out of the box and was so good as a rookie. And then, I think in Philadelphia there were a number of circumstances that went into play, but water started to find its level a little bit. So when guys come out of the box in the NFL season as a rookie, and people want to automatically determine that that's who they are, I personally am a huge believer in Trevor Lawrence. I think he's as gifted a quarterback entering the league as we have seen probably going back to Elway, even as much as Manning. And his circumstance was impossible that he was going into. So I'm an apologist for him, admittedly. But Baker Mayfield, in your opinion, Brendan, if you were a Cleveland Brown fan,
yikes,
is Baker Mayfield the guy or not?
Not after what he did in Green Bay. And with how they turn over quarterbacks, Jake, I mean, it doesn't take long for somebody to get ran out of town over there. And I'm not from Cleveland. I've actually never been to Cleveland, was not able to get there during the Cubs World Series. But if I know one thing about Cleveland, it's that they don't give their guys a whole lot of time. And looking what's out there, Jake, I mean, we're going to cycle back on that Deshaun Watson talk coming up here in the offseason, and that's going to be very interesting if Cleveland wants to make a move.
I just think the quarterback position is so interesting because probably more than any in sports, you have a very fine line of time between when you push through and ride it out and when you just ruin a guy and bail on it. And I think sometimes guys get put on the shelf too early, or they get thrown into the mix too early. You look at, I think people forget. I mean, Manning's rookie year, he set the NFL record for most interceptions by a rookie. I mean, he was not good. He had glimpses for sure, but he struggled. And there were already whispers. I remember in his rookie year, people saying, "Oh, they should just go ahead and trade him now and get a bunch of picks and draft Brian Greasy." And the whole deal,
Brian
right?
Greasy. Wow.
I'm telling you, because he was, he had won at Michigan. There were all these different conversations, and I just look around. There are so many good young quarterbacks, but you don't know if that means it's sustained high-level play. Now, Lamar Jackson looks like one that's going to be sustained high-level play, but so much of what Lamar Jackson wants to do, like RG3 when he was playing, was predicated upon his ability to extend plays or the threat of the run. Once that goes away for him, as he gets more dinged up, is he then the same drop-back level passer? I think he's an underrated passer, Lamar Jackson. And he's one that's going to stick around. Josh Allen, I think we're just now finding out, is indeed a guy you could run with and that's going to be your long-term guy. But there are other guys that look fantastic in their first year or two, and then it just starts to go backward, and there's no coming back from it. And I just feel like Baker Mayfield is getting dangerously close to that category, whether that's fair or not.
That's why, Jake, I'm interested to see what happens with Justin Herbert in the near future, because the Chargers are going through some adversity, and I love Justin Herbert coming out of the draft.
Do too.
And not a lot of people liked him coming out of Oregon, but I did. And when the name Justin Herbert got tossed around here, people were pretty quick to brush that off. And like what has happened, but like a Justin Herbert draft pick here, I mean, you think about what that could have been. Regardless, now the Chargers are going through stuff, but you brought up Trevor Lawrence. I mean, think about it. All the talent in the world. He has an illustrious college career full of winning, and only winning, basically. And now he's going to be on his second head coach in 2 years and is on a brutal Jacksonville team. I mean, that's going to be must-watch TV if and when he does figure it out.
I'm telling you. I mean, listen, he was an unbelievable high school player. I watched every snap he took in college. That guy, he is Peyton Manning part 2. I'm telling you. I mean, he's got the size, he's got the touch, he's got the strength, he's got the leadership. I mean, you name it, he absolutely has it. I love Trevor Lawrence. And Herbert, Jimmy Johnson, football Jimmy Johnson, not racer Jimmy Johnson, but football Jimmy Johnson said it. If he was starting an NFL franchise today and he had to pick one player currently in the league on his franchise, it would be Justin Herbert that he would select first overall. We've selected Scott Agnes to be the first to join us in the 9 o'clock hour. Fieldhouse Files, that conversation next. Kevin and Query.
This is what you missed if you haven't been listening to Indy's Home for Sports.
This is a monster day for Indianapolis. Thought it was going to be possible.
On your radio.
And it's an over-the-shoulder grab into the end zone for a touchdown.
On the Fan app. You're listening to the best of Kevin and Query on your smart speaker.
You're listening to 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
On your phone.
I mean, what? That is a lot of cash.
I guess you're all out of excuses. Listen anytime you want. Just listen to that. To the Fan.
Did you know Amazon provides ways of working that fit your lifestyle? They know you value your time outside of work, juggling family, school, friends, or other activities. That's why they offer a variety of shifts that work for you. There are full-time, part-time, and even temporary opportunities that can work with your schedule, with great starting pay and sign-on bonuses. If you want a career that fits and adapts to your lifestyle, head to Amazon.com/apply. Amazon is a proud equal opportunity employer.
Home values have skyrocketed.
And Golden Oak Lending can save you money with their low 1.875% rate.
I'm James Hawkins, president of Golden Oak. With our low rates and your increased equity, you can make home improvements or pay off debt.
Woo-hoo! Plus, skip your next 2 mortgage payments. Call 317-706-GOLD today.
Golden Oak Lending cured my blues.
NMLS 114937. 1.875% fixed. 2.952% APR. FHA 15-year mortgage with 20% equity and approved credit.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
WIBC HD2 W298BB. WIBC HD3 W228CX. Indianapolis.
Hey, join me today. Who's coming? Uncle Phil? Drew Brees? I don't know, but the news broke, and we're going to keep talking about Carson Wentz on the COVID list and who's going to replace him. Join me today.
It's Kevin and Query.
If we die together. Yeah, you can get it done. You can get it done. What's more, you gotta get it done.
On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
9 o'clock on a Wednesday. Jay Query here along with Brendan King. How are you? It is Kevin and Query. Kevin Bowen on vacation for the rest of the week, rest of the year, technically speaking. Be back with us on Monday. Mark Dykton is flying things back in mission control at MS Communications. Joining us now on the Payless Liquors hotline, he is the writer, he is the founder, he is the guru of Fieldhouse Files, and he is, of course, talking about the Indiana Pacers. Scott Agnes joins us, and Scott, will begin with this. If you were Rick Carlisle and you were making your New Year's resolutions for your team, your first New Year's resolution would be what?
I think it would start with getting back, reestablishing a team identity of having very good defense. It's been atrocious in December. I think the 27th ranked defensive rating, and that's always been the part of this team's identity. And that, along with having the second worst road record, are two things that really jump out at me, Jake.
Hey, Scott, it's Brendan. I know the Pacers beating shorthanded teams has not necessarily been a given so far this year, and the Hornets without Miles Bridges, P.J. Washington, and Scotty Lewis tonight. Do you think that narrative is different tonight inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse?
I wish I knew. I can't say with any great certainty that it will be, because that has been an ongoing theme. There's been countless opponents that have been without their star or without several starters, and it just hadn't mattered. You think about Milwaukee, you think about Miami, and go on down the list. Miles Bridges it fits the bill of that player that's kind of a Pacers killer, because the Pacers don't have anybody that can defend out on the wing, haven't had for several years, and so he has had great success against the Pacers. So him being out is a positive for the Pacers, but it doesn't automatically translate to a win, no.
Scott, it's not a good sign when you are, 30-plus games into a season, and the biggest splash that you've made so far is a change at your number 3 point guard position. But the reality is that the Pacers, I think, are still searching and finding, and Kevin Pritchard's trying to find areas, some by design and some by just necessity, of plugging in different areas of the roster. What all went into, that's such a position. I'm thinking, really, third string point guard, like that's an area of major concern here. What all went into the decisions here to make those moves?
So Kiefer Sykes was with the Pacers going back from in summer league. He's approaching 28. He turns 28 on Thursday. And the COVID really took a toll on him. So he prioritized coming back from overseas, being in the Midwest, being with his family. And so he left money on the table playing overseas, for example, to be back here in the Midwest. And so that's why he kind of became available, let's say. Then he was in training camp with the Pacers and was a little bit injured, didn't impress completely. His shot was horrible. And that was very different than what we had seen both in Summer League and in these years prior elsewhere. And so Rick Carlisle, who's a firm believer in the belief of in the belief of a point guard and even a third string guy, and you got to know, having Malcolm Brogdon as your starting point guard, he's going to miss some time just because historically that's what he always does each season. So he didn't feel completely comfortable with that spot. And so he wanted to go with a guy who had been there, done that. And Brad Wanamaker had done that for 2 or 3 years, at least in the NBA, and was solid for the first month or so. But there needed to be a change or something updated, especially because TJ McConnell then went out, and he's now out for at least several months, an indefinite period of time, they'll say. So right now, you don't have a true point guard that you can rely upon because Malcolm's going to be day-to-day here for at least the next month with the sore Achilles. TJ's out. Brad Wanamaker did less in 9 minutes in the Bulls game than Dwayne Washington Jr., a rookie, on a two-way deal, did in 1 minute. So I think because of that, and to add on top of that the context, Jake, of the Pacers have until January 10th to make a decision on him and other guys like Keelan Morton, or else their contract for this season becomes fully guaranteed. So those few things went into that decision.
Scott, speaking of TJs, saw the video of TJ Warren putting up some shots. Are we still at the stage of it's weeks for him as opposed to months, or has something changed?
Yeah, I think it's definitely weeks. That's the fun language that Rick Carlisle used.
Yeah.
December was ruled out, so there was no question about that for a long while. He's doing more, and what I've said is he's doing more in the public eye. He's doing more of that stuff after practice, where now I can get videos of him. Now I can see him dribble between his legs and do a step back. I can see him curl around the three-point arc and working with coaches. Before, it was basically free throws, and that's about it in front of us, in front of the cameras, let's say, right? But there's no further clarity at this juncture of when's the next step in his progress. I don't believe thus far he's done one-on-one. Since August, he did do a little of that, and then he had that setback. But I still think what I've said is at the earliest, mid-January, I think, is the absolute best, but nothing has been set.
Scott Agnes of Fieldhouse Files is our guest on the Payless Liquors guest line. Good morning to you. It is Kevin and Corey here on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Scott, I'm going to give you a question that shows that at least for the last week or so, it's been peripheral for me in terms of the keeping an eye on the day-to-day of the Pacers. Feels to me, outsider observation, like Keelan Martin was a guy that was getting really good looks and taking advantage of them and really becoming a favored part of Rick Carlisle's rotation, and that his minutes have waned since. And there could be an injury there. If I will totally admit my ignorance here, but am I correct in saying that the definitive nature of Keelan Martin being a part of the franchise doesn't feel as solid now as it did 6 weeks ago?
I think that is true, but it's mostly due, in my opinion, due to the emergence of O'Shea Brissett. And that was one decision where I disagreed with Rick Carlisle to start the year, because O'Shea was just sitting on the bench and not being used. And for a team that lacks energy guy, especially with TJ McConnell being out, and a guy that just does the dirty work and doesn't complain, it baffled me that O'Shea could not get in there. And while he's been back in the rotation and playing so well, that Lloyd Pierce, the former acting head coach, and now Rick being back, couldn't just let him sit there. And so I think the difference, Jake, we're seeing is O'Shea Brissett earned a solid role in the rotation, and thus far it has reduced some of Keelan's what had become more predictable minutes from 25 down to 18 minutes per game. But I think he's still certainly on firm foundation here.
Scott, so far through his rookie year, have you preferred or have you seen anything different, I guess, between Chris Duarte as a starter as opposed to coming off the bench?
No, not in particular, really. With the bench, especially when Domas is out there, he's able to play more of that two-man game, where that doesn't really work with the starters, and then just because of the different personnel that's out there. He would like to be starting. He's good or content or not going to complain about coming off the bench, but of course he wants to start. Of course he wants to be Rookie of the Year, and among the things that go into that is your workload and your production, and he does more and gets more minutes when he's out there, I think, as a starter. So right now, with guys being out, he has started along with Justin Holiday. Eventually, it would be better in this team's interest to be able to bring at least one of those guys off the bench, because that bench unit has struggled, doesn't have the depth, and lacks scoring power that one of them at least could be able to provide.
Scott, you got to write down 2 names on a sheet of paper right now and put them in an envelope. We're then going to go and give those 2 names in the envelope. We're going to take them over to a big bank. And on March 1st, we're going to open up that envelope. And if neither of those 2 names are Indiana Pacers, you're going to walk into the vault and get $1 million. What 2 names you writing down?
I love this game. Writing down the names made me immediately think of the movie Draft Day. But nonetheless, one would be Karis LeVert, and the other will be Kiefer Sykes. And I feel like that's a cheap out. But like I was talking with Brad Wanamaker, if he's on the roster past January 10th, he gets his full contract for the rest of the year. So he's going to have to really impress, I think, over these next 2 weeks to be able to earn that. So I'll put those 2 names in that vault.
Karis LeVert to me is intriguing. We've talked a lot about this. I just increasingly get the feeling. There was a guy that played, Scott, in the league, 15 years ago or so, that played at Iowa named Ricky Davis. And Ricky Davis was a really gifted offensive player, and he'd go out and he'd get like 22, 25. Larry Hughes is another that comes to mind here. And Larry Hughes I look at, and he was getting 22, 25 a night. He was athletic. He could score in multiple ways. But nobody around him was getting any better. Nobody was involved. And his team was going 24 and 58 every year or whatever, right? I know it's unfair to say that about Karis LeVert. But Karis LeVert feels to me, Scott, like a guy that when he looks really good, it's unfortunately coming at the cost of nothing really around him improving. Tell me I'm wrong.
No, I think you're onto something there, Jake, in the fact that he's had some of his most productive Pacers basketball over the last 2 weeks, and generally the Pacers have not done good. They haven't won on the road this month, for example. They've gone 5-6 in December. He's a guy that I thought would up his workload and be able to repair that a little bit and become the guy. I mean, I remember having conversations probably with you guys, part of it before the season, saying, who's the guy you build around? Who's the featured guy? And I've always said Karis LeVert. I thought he was that guy, or at least could potentially become that. But so far, now that he's been stable in terms of injuries, has not missed significant time, and has been back for a month plus, I just don't think that's the case, and I think it's more likely than not that he is dealt first. But, of course, it always takes the other side to be interested in reasonable value. But it was also telling, too, of his place a little bit, Jake, he's among the players that was eligible to have their contract extended before the season. Malcolm obviously got it. Jeremy Lamb could have, Justin Holiday, and nothing happened with Karis LeVert. And you're the Pacers, and he's part of your future. You want to get him to an extension now, as soon as possible, before potentially the bidding could go up. That's what they did with Miles. That's what they did with Domas, and now that's what they did with Malcolm. They did not do that with Karis.
And Scott, speaking of trade talk, so Kyrie Irving has just cleared COVID protocol. He can only play outside of New York and Toronto, meaning the first time he can play would be against the Pacers on January 5th. What's more likely to happen first? Kyrie plays his first game of the year, or the Pacers make a trade?
Definitely the former, with Kyrie playing his first game. Right now, trade market's just stuck right now. Basically, all the general managers and presidents are are calling around trying to get enough players to field rosters. Now, knock on wood, it had not affected the Pacers directly. The Bucks have been a team not severely impacted. But go look at the injury report for some of these teams. It's atrocious. The Miami Heat or Washington Wizards, let's say, for example, flew in former Pacer Alize Johnson, and he suited up last night. That's how desperate they are. They're calling so many guys across the league just to do these 10-day hardship waivers. So because of that, there really haven't been any substantial trade talks, both focused on the Pacers or really elsewhere. And so I think you're not going to see any progress on that for at least a couple more weeks.
Scott, not in terms of – Scott Agnes is our guest on the Payless Liquors guest line. He is with Fieldhouse Files, where you can read his Pacers work. Not in terms of totality of career, but in terms of right now in December of 2021. Give me the 4 best coaches in the NBA.
Right now, for me, it would start Greg Popovich, Eric Spoelstra, Quinn in Utah, probably Carlisle. I'd go. He's right there, and there's probably a couple more that you could fill out. But yeah, that's basically the list. So,
and I don't disagree on that. And I think Spoelstra's fantastic. By the way,
Yep.
I think that we didn't realize because he had, in the beginning there. And, I mean, you look now at the way his guys buy in and, he's going around and combing out Belzer Middle School and getting guys to play. And they're it's amazing. But
remember, there was talk of the Heat trying to move on or the players trying to move on from him early on and bring back Pat Riley. When you talk about, those LeBron years initially. And,
it's amazing.
He's shown up to be a genius. You're right.
He reminds me of – I'll tell you what, the Eric Spoelstra Heat remind me of Brad Stevens' Butler teams. They just play so well together. They know where the ball is before everybody else. I mean, it really is amazing. But the reason I asked the question, I agree on Rick Carlisle, but at the risk of sounding like I'm sliding Rick Carlisle, which I guess I am here, when are we going to see Rick Carlisle's footprint or thumbprint of his magnitude of coaching greatness on this roster?
Very good question. And I'm with you, too. I think before the season, Jake, I would have probably not hesitated and included him in that maybe top 3, right? And there you could sense my hesitation, like, oh, yeah, and Carlisle. I think what that's come down to is, first of all, he's tried to feel out the roster. Roster hadn't changed really much at all other than a few pieces, nothing sizable. So he's tried to figure that out. But you're right. He hasn't put his imprint on things just yet. I mean, they've tried a few new things like going to zone. A lot of that was Lloyd Pierce, the defensive coordinator on this. And what has surprised me is the offense and how inefficient it has been. Because I thought he would, much like Eric Spoelstra down in Miami, forget about the names on the back of the jersey. Whoever's out there, he's going to make work. In a lot of games this season, it feels like, and maybe this speaks more to the roster, but a lot of the games, it seems like the biggest question isn't even what plays they're running, calling, or the flow of the offense. It's getting guys that play with energy. It's grabbing the rebound. It's getting the loose balls. And those were things under Nate McMillan, for example, we never had to question or never were concerned about. They just lacked talent.
Hey, Scott, last thing for me, I was listening with you and Alex Golden on Alex's podcast, Setting the Pace. I just wanted to clarify. So the Philadelphia 76ers made one last run at a possible Ben Simmons trade with the Pacers before the Pacers re-signed Malcolm Brogdon?
No, the other way.
Oh, the other way. Okay.
Before the Pacers agreed to a contract with Malcolm Brogdon, the extension this fall, they reached out once more. And the reason on that is because once a player signs an extension, they're untradeable for 6 months. So it's basically saying, hey, Malcolm's a player you would be most interested in at that point guard spot. That's a position Ben played. You don't really need a guy like Miles Turner or Domas playing right next to Joel Embiid. Just last call here. Just wanted to make sure, are you good with this? Because otherwise, Malcolm's off the table for 6 months and probably will be off the table, and Ben Simmons will be dealt before Malcolm is eligible. So that was just the Pacers checking in once more. That's all that was.
Scott Agnes, Fieldhouse Files, where you can read them. Scott, appreciate the time. Happy New Year to you, all right?
Appreciate it. Happy New Year, guys.
Thanks, Scott.
Scott Agnes on the Payless Liquors hotline. Time now for a Big O Tires Sports Center update.
The Sports Center update on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan is presented by Big O Tires, the team you trust.
All right, Brendan King, I'm going to give you once again your choice here of the different subjects that I have written down on my little notes in terms of the headlines for Big O Tires. We'll start with college basketball. You want to go teams that played or teams that are playing or teams that get a free vacation?
Who's getting the free vacation, Jake, for NYU?
Well, thank you for asking.
Yes.
Prairie View has gotten a free vacation because they were supposed to take on the Valpo. What is Valpo now? Are they no longer the Crusaders?
They are no longer the Crusaders. Hold on. You know who knows that answer? It's not
me. I'm sure
Scotty
Johnson would know that.
Yeah, actually, Scott Johnson would know that. Who's Valpo's mascot now, Scotty? The who?
The Beacons.
The Beacons.
The Beacons. Okay.
Do the Beacons have a Prairie View?
If you get a beacon of light, the Prairie View, even in darkness, just becomes fantastic.
When I think of lighthouses, I think of Valparaiso, Indiana.
The Beacons.
That's exactly right. You know how strong that beacon's got to be to shine that light over Lake Michigan from Valpo? Although, if you talk to anybody from Valpo, they'll tell you they're from Chicago.
I'm pretty sure Eric Wannenberg went to Valpo. So
is that where Eric Wannenberg went?
Yes.
General sales manager? By the way, Eric Wannenberg and his staff at 93.5, 107.5 The Fan, willing to help you with any of your needs in terms of getting your message out via the wonderful world of advertising. Ball State and Northern Illinois also postponed. They had already had a date postponed. Not unlike my high school dating career, that date was postponed again, and there is no makeup date as of now between the Huskies and the Cardinals of Ball State. Also not taking place, UNC Asheville, which was supposed to play the 10-2 ranked, or 10-2, I should say, mark of Mike Woodson's Indiana Hoosiers. That game has been canceled. Indiana's next game will be January 2nd, Penn State opening Big Ten play. Nichols and Purdue is still on. By the way, I don't know if you know this or not, Brendan, but you cannot get into that game for 10 cents, which would be Nichols. But Nichols is at Purdue, number 3 in Mackey Arena, the third-ranked Boilermakers. 5 o'clock tonight. That game is taking place. Charlotte at Indiana in the NBA side of things, 7 o'clock tonight at the Fieldhouse. Now, we talked plenty about the fact that Carson Wentz is on the COVID list. He is one of 15 Colts. But Brendan King, the reality, it doesn't appear imminent that Carson Wentz is going to miss the Las Vegas Raiders game. That still is very much in play.
Not perfect timing, Jake, yesterday with the NFL protocols. I mean, shortly after Carson Wentz got the positive test back, Adam Schefter tweets that the NFL is working with the CDC possibly to meet up with the 5-day guideline, and then it didn't take long for it to be adopted. So, I mean, great timing scenario if you're an Indianapolis Colts fan.
And, of course, this is all reliant upon Carson Wentz being asymptomatic, and absolutely hope that is the case. I have no idea who determines whether or not he has symptoms. But if Carson Wentz remains asymptomatic, it appears as though the signal caller for the Colts, who has 3,230 yards, 25 touchdowns, 6 interceptions over the course of the year, could well be under center when the Colts take on the Raiders coming up on Sunday. He also will not have to be tested now for 90 days. So seemingly this clears the way for the rest of the year for Carson Wentz.
Jake, let me ask you a question. So you just mentioned the touchdown to interception rate for Carson Wentz. Is that the best case scenario in terms of numbers you could have imagined for him?
Yes, absolutely.
I think so too.
The bugaboo on him was that he had difficulty holding on to the football. And look, I've been bullish on him. Despite Brian calling in and saying that, I'm a hater of Carson Wentz, I think I've been as favorable on him as anybody. I think he's played well, and I love his ability to extend plays. I think he's a really good decision maker. Quite frankly, Carson Wentz is not the gifted player of Andrew Luck, no doubt about it. But the one thing that Carson Wentz does do better than Andrew Luck was knowing when to abort the pass and go ahead with a run play, either in an RPO or even for himself. I think he does that really well, and I think that dynamic is something that has really benefited him this year. And again, maybe that's Frank Reich, as the quarterback whisperer in his ear. Also yesterday in the NFL, sad news, obviously last night, the news came out that 85-year-old John Madden who won 76.3% of his games as a coach of the Oakland Raiders. Madden had himself been a player, but it was really as a coach where he flourished, winning Super Bowl 11, becoming a Hall of Fame player, and then literally a Hall of Fame personality that transcended the sport for multiple generations. He was in the booth for the Super Bowl for 4 different networks, working alongside some of the most iconic voices of play-by-play in football history. And then, Brendan, as you had talked about, his coaching career was where my dad knew John Madden. The broadcast career is where I knew John Madden. And then for you being a little bit younger, it was the entertainment career where you got to know John Madden.
Exactly, Jake. And I'm not the biggest video gamer in the world, but even more so, I still know Madden very well. And actually, Brandon Gaudin, the former voice of Butler basketball, he is now the voice of Madden NFL. And, that's quite the fraternity there. Gus Johnson at one point was the Madden voice, but Gaudin now, he does a great job. And, his voice, you hear him every time you play a game on Madden. So, from the early days of Madden, I think the first one I had was like Madden 2002 when I was a kid. That was I had that on the computer game. That was a PC game. So at least I'm old enough to remember that. But I've had a Madden PC game and now I've had a Madden PS5 game. So that's like the whole vortex.
That is the Big O Tire Sports Center update. Brendan King, you are going to strongly disagree with me on my next opinion. Then I'm going to segue from what you just said. You ready?
Please go.
Before we get into the pop quiz here coming up. I'm telling you right now, I'll bet you it's a good thing I'm not in studio because I'll bet you would throw me down a flight of stairs from the 6th floor over this take. You ready?
Let me hear it. Should I be worried?
I don't disagree that he is a talented individual.
Oh, boy.
Okay?
I know what you're going to say.
You ever eaten a Shamrock Shake at McDonald's?
I have.
They're not any good. They're basically frozen crust toothpaste. But you convince yourself they're good because they're only available for the 10 days
I know what you're going to
St.
say.
Patrick's Day.
Just pull it off like the Band-Aid.
Every year with eggnog, I think to myself, I like eggnog. Then I take 2 sips of it, and I'm like, there's a reason I only drink eggnog once a year. Gus Johnson calling games. He is the Shamrock Shake or eggnog.
Boo.
He is fine in a big game and in a big moment. But the art of play-by-play is you call differently a McNeese-Alcorn State game, 3rd quarter 3-point shot in February than you should the same play between North Carolina and Duke in March. And the fact that he calls it all the same. It's you got to know. When you call the Indianapolis 500, a pass for the lead on lap 20 is called differently than a pass for the lead on lap 198. He is so over the top to me, and I get that that's his shtick. But he's kind of like Tony Romo. Tony Romo, when Tony Romo first started doing games, people were like, "This is unbelievable!" Tony Romo's calling, and he's screaming and he's calling out the plays, and everybody fell in love with it overnight. And I think Tony Romo already has hit a fatigue factor. If you're a broadcaster, the last thing you want, although it's inevitable, is a fatigue factor. Gus Johnson's window before the fatigue factor kicked in was far shorter than anybody else I've seen.
Okay, so I'm not going to throw you down a flight of stairs. I would never do that because we're friends, and I wouldn't do that. And
I'm bigger than you.
That's true. Here's the thing. So I get your point of calling a D2 3-point shot the same as calling the Final Four. But as a play-by-play announcer, Jake, and as a baseball play-by-play announcer in particular, the best career advice I've ever gotten is from Pat Hughes, the play-by-play voice of the Chicago Cubs, or at least one of the best tips I've gotten from Pat is you should call single-A baseball to the same energetic standpoint as you would call Major League Baseball.
Of course, but you call a game in June differently than you call a game in October.
Well, with certain calls, yes. So with certain calls, yeah, but the basis.
Let me rephrase that. Here comes a pain. You call a game. Here's a better way of saying it. You call a game differently in the 2nd inning than you do the 9th.
But still, the ingredients to the call are the same. And for Gus, his ingredients to a call is just going wild the whole time. As you said, that's his style.
Yeah, and again, like I said, to me, that just the fatigue factor. the fatigue factor for me already kicked in. I do think that with Gus Johnson, again, I don't dispute his talent. And I'm not trying to sound like the old guy, although I will claim to be the old guy here. I think that Gus Johnson, there's a very definitive line in terms of age groups that love and age groups that tire of Gus Johnson.
Yes.
Not like Dick Vitale. I mean, Dick Vitale, when I was 25, I think my dad was like, this guy is way too over the top.
Yeah.
And so he's this generation's Dick Vitale.
Okay. No, I will buy that. I will buy that.
I will quit yelling at the clouds long enough to do the pop quiz, which is next. If you want to partake on the pop quiz, 239-1070 is the telephone number. It is Kevin and Query. You're listening to it 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
Heartbreak City! Hi, I'm Ryan Kelly with thehomeloanexpert.com. There's never been a better time for a cash-out refinance. Thehomeloanexpert.com.
NMLS number 1326-241.
Join us on The Fan and listen to Jason Hammer on You Bet with Bet Rivers, 7 to 8 p.m. on Thursdays, where you can get all the betting advice you would ever need.
Hurry into Mattress Firm's year-end sale. Get up to 50% off select mattresses from Sealy, Serta, Sleepy's, and more. In stock for fast delivery.
Get your payout before the game's out with BetMGM. Place a moneyline wager on any Thursday night football game, and if your team is up by 10 or more points at halftime, you win. That's a full payout for only half the game, no matter what happens the rest of the way. Simply go to your BetMGM account and opt in each week to the Thursday night halftime payout promotion. Want to continue wagering in the third quarter? Keep it rolling with BetMGM's extensive live betting options. Need hit the sack early? Use your winnings to place a one-game parlay on Sunday and go for Gridiron Glory. If you're new to BetMGM, download the app today and see how you can turn halftime into cash time. Make a moneyline bet on Thursday night, and if your team is up by 10 or more, you'll win at the half. Only at BetMGM. Opt-in required. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. Indiana only. Must be 21 years or older to wager. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT.
At Kroger, fresh groceries are our thing, so we check your delivery order for freshness at every step from farm to store and pick and pack every veggie in your free pickup order with care, because we treat your food the way we'd want ours to be treated. We're fresh every day, so shop anyway. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Free pickup on orders of $35 or more. Restrictions may apply.
Get more ways to save at the Buy 5 or More Save $1 each sale. Just buy 5 or more participating items and save $1 each with card. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Come celebrate New Year's Eve with Royal Pin. Family New Year's Eve parties at Woodland, Expo, and Western Bowls start at just $100 per lane. Royal Pin's New Year's Eve parties start at $100 per lane. Include bowling for up to 6 people, pizza, use of shoes, party favors, door prizes, and a New Year's Eve toast to end the evening. Have fun bowling with your family and friends this New Year's Eve at Royal Pin. With 2 party time options, lanes are filling up fast. Deposits are required, so please call 465-8484 for info and reservations. And for just $100 per lane, you can have a great time this New Year's Eve with family and friends bowling.
Set them up, knock them down, send them flying, spinning round.
Call 465-8484 or pull up RoyalPin.com.
Royal Pin, bowling, bowling. Royal Pin, bowling.
This is a sports town. You're a guy.
Or a gal.
So 1075thefan.com is your website. From the Colts to the Pacers, from IndyCar to Indy high school sports, plus coaches' interviews, event info, free stuff, and beer.
There's no beer.
My bad. Plus blogs and podcasts from Kevin and Query, Dan Dockich, and JMV. And you can always listen to us live from anywhere on planet Earth.
24 hours a day.
All at 1075thefan.com. Have you studied? Can you handle the pressure? Sharpen your pencils. It's time for the Pop Quiz with Kevin and Query. Brought to you by Jiffy Lube, Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985.
Brendan King, here is the open disclaimer on how I've done this the last 2 days with Kevin. Are you ready?
Hit me.
In terms of the pop quiz?
Hit me.
So, where I live a pretty simplistic life.
That was clear by our phone call last night.
Correct. So my residence, I basically shower in. Like, I'm basically living in a Motel 6. I leave the light on for myself.
That's nice of you.
I spend the vast majority of time, by and large, obviously elsewhere. So my residence does not have, and I'm almost embarrassed to admit this, I've never had Wi-Fi because I've never needed it. I'm never here. And I use my phone if I need to do anything when I'm home. I'm literally home basically to sleep, and that's it. So when all of a sudden I find out, oh, wait a minute, I'm going to have to actually, and during COVID quarantine and all that, when the whole world was working from home, I wasn't working. So, you know, I've never had like a work from home setup or anything else, and all I've ever done is radio. So it's not like I had an office type situation. So I will say I now will have Wi-Fi in my home starting on Friday, which is for future purposes, but I don't now. So I'm doing the show. Once I tested positive for COVID and had to do the show remotely, I'm actually doing it via an app on my phone, which is pretty amazing technology, no question about it. But as a result of that, my phone is what I've always used. So I don't have the Wi-Fi right here to be able to look at the internet, which is amazing. I realize I'm 49 years old. Please have a heart. So based on that, I don't have the pop quiz like right in front of me. So I just jot down the questions to read for myself from Scotty when I see the email during the commercial break. But I'm a slow writer and obviously a slow illustrator of this situation. And so therefore, I've only written down 2 of the questions. So I have written down questions 2 and 4, meaning that you, Brendan King, are responsible for questions 1, 3, and 5. Is that fair?
I could do that, Captain.
Okay. So now, the other thing that you're responsible for is you get to pick what number we are going with on the callers.
Wow. Mark, do you have a Gus Johnson wow?
I don't want to upset Jake anymore.
No, that's okay.
Thank you, Mark.
Jake, this is the 3rd show we have done together. So let's go number 3.
AJ.
What's up, AJ?
Yeah.
AJ, you sound like a fun guy. Are you a fun guy?
No, I just need an oil change.
Not like algae, I guess. Well, I like that. AJ, if you don't mind me asking, how old a fella are you?
I'm under witness protection. I don't give that info out.
Okay. Now, did you kill a guy?
Just a little bit.
Well, if you're witness protection, you witnessed a guy that killed a guy, right? Is that what it was?
Not exactly.
Well, you probably shouldn't be calling
into a radio show if you're trying to protect your identity. We got to get that voice. What's that thing where you can make somebody's voice sound like they're?
The dude you guys had on yesterday gave his whole profile out.
You think somebody's going to steal your identity, AJ?
Oh no.
Fair enough. All right, AJ. Well, let me ask you this: when you were a kid, AJ, was AJ Foyt already a known race car driver?
Heck yes.
Okay, so we know that you are at least under the age of, like, say, 60. Okay, Brendan King will read you question number 1.
I shall. AJ, the current Nashville NFL team is called the Tennessee Titans, and the Titans began life in the American Football League as the Houston Oilers. Another current NFL team was originally named the Titans. Who was it? The Detroit Lions, the New York Jets, the Philadelphia Eagles, or the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Well, one more time, quick.
Which current NFL team was originally named the Titans? The Lions, the Jets, the Eagles, or the Steelers?
Think about West Side Story. Do you ever seen West Side Story, AJ?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you had the Sharks and the who?
The Jets. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that an answer? Yeah, I think that's an answer. Yeah.
AJ said he needs that oil change and possibly a filter. Okay, question number 2. Steph Curry last night went over 3,000. That's right. Over 3,000 three-pointers of the career of Steph Curry. He also, by the way, has now hit a 3 in 157 consecutive games in his career. That is only the second time that's happened in the National Basketball Association. Who is the other player that accomplished this feat? Was it A, actually also Steph Curry, B, Ray Allen, C, Reggie Miller, or D, Kyle Korver?
Corver.
Okay.
It's a good guess. AJ, Hall of Fame NFL coach and announcer. No, I just said it was a good guess. Hall of Fame NFL coach and announcer John Madden passed away yesterday at the age of 85. Madden's nearly 76% winning percentage is the highest among all NFL head coaches who coached a minimum of 100 games. Who is second on the all-time winning percentage list for coaches? Don Shula, Blanton Collier, yes, George Allen, or Vince Lombardi?
Allen.
Okay. Question number 4 for you, AJ. By the way, AJ, the thing I like about you is I get the impression here that of the two of us, you'd rather hang out with me than Brendan. Is that right?
All right, what is that supposed to mean?
Yeah, I don't get that, but
what the hell is that?
If I get an oil change, we can hang out at Jiffy Lube.
Well, you sound like you're more of my age group.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Like your dad.
Okay, fair enough. Although when my dad was a kid, nobody had ever heard of AJ Foyt at that point. When John Madden moved into the booth doing Monday Night Football with Al Michaels, he replaced 2 different analysts because John Madden was so good and so larger than life that he could replace 2 people. Can you name either of the 2 people that John Madden replaced, one of which was a former bearded Chargers quarterback that threw for Eric Coryell, and the other was a comedian?
Summerall was the play-by-play guy.
Fouts.
Hey, there you go. AJ, how is your hockey knowledge?
I like to watch fights.
All right, that's good. On this day in on this day in 1945, AJ, Maurice Richard of the Montreal Canadiens scored his 100th career goal. The Rocket needed just 145 games to score 100 goals. That was the fastest in history at the time. Who currently holds the record for reaching 100 goals in the fewest number of games?
Gretzky.
No, hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You might think it is. All right, so we're going to give you the guess of Teemu Selanne, Mike Bossy, or Joe Nieuwendyk. Wayne Gretzky was A, which is incorrect.
Can you say it again?
Teemu Selanne, Mike Bossy, or Joe Nieuwendyk?
Bossy, I've heard his name.
There you go.
You must be from Evansville. AJ, by the way, if you would find fascination less in watching fights, you would not need to be in witness protection, okay? Just an FYI. Just an FYI. All right, Brendan, let's go over the answers here. Question number 1, you had it. What was the answer?
The New York Jets were there you go. They were the team originally named the Titans from 60 through 62.
Question number 2. Steph Curry hit his 100. He hit a 3 last night in his 157th consecutive game. That's only been done one other time in NBA history. What player did it? The answer is...
Well, AJ guessed Kyle Korver.
Yeah, it was actually Steph Curry.
Yeah.
You blew it!
You don't get to come back tomorrow. You don't even get a lousy copy of our home game. You're a complete loser.
There's we see the buckets. Now there's a third bucket this week. I think what happened, there's always been like a mother and father. Like this is a father bucket, this is a mother bucket, and since the last game, they had a baby bucket. So this is a baby bucket. So they got 3 now. There's always been 2. One's going to go to Parcells, one's going to go to another assistant, and one will go to a player later in the game.
I guess that clears up the question as to whether they're married or not.
What an old school comment. What an old school comment to end.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah, man, those guys. I'll tell you what, Pat Summerall. And by the way, question number 4, the answer was, in fact, Dan Fouts. Dennis Miller was the other. And then question number 5, what was the answer?
Mike Bossy, he was right. Well, Vince Lombardi was the correct answer for...
Okay.
But yeah, Mike Bossy was the last one.
Summerall, it's really interesting. John Madden, when I was a kid, I remember John Madden from beer commercials, quite frankly, because he was just this large, almost like grimace-looking character. And he was a character, both in his stature and his persona alike. He was just a character. And, you know, my dad told me that he had been a coach for the Raiders, and I'd seen the video of him, of course, in Super Bowl XI winning it. but I thought of him more often than not with Pat Summerall. I had forgotten, Brendan, that he had worked the Super Bowl for 4 different networks, and I had forgotten that he'd worked with Al Michaels for that matter. Summerall to me was where, and that's just an age thing. I mean, when I was, coming up, that's who it was. I mean, it was, Stephen Holder said it best. I mean, they did seemingly every Cowboys game. It was unbelievable. But Madden was just a larger-than-life personality. And I told the story earlier today at the top of the show about when I worked at Channel 6. And at that time, he was on ABC, Monday Night Football, with Al Michaels and Michelle Tafoya. And I was working at Channel 6, and they had an event before a Colts game where I went down to the hotel to pick them up. A limo picked them up, but I was just, because I worked at Channel 6, I was kind of the greeter to make sure that they knew where they were going and that kind of thing. All 3 could not have been nicer. But John Madden, the second we got in the limo, rolled the window down and held his head out the window. And he literally looked like a dog in a dog commercial, hanging his head out the window, or Ace Ventura, as we drove around. And I was watching people as we drove through downtown, and you could tell they're like, I think that's John Madden's head hanging out of that limo. And finally, I made the comment to him, well, I guess the fresh air you're getting by ground travel, because, of course, he was so known for traveling in the Madden Cruiser, his bus, no matter where they were going, from one city to the next. And I said, I guess the advantage of fresh air, you don't get that on an airplane. And I said, that's the benefit of fear of flying. And he pulled his head back, like he had to turn his head sideways to get it through the window. And he looked at me and said, I don't have a fear of flying. I'm just claustrophobic, which I thought was fascinating, because I think most people thought he had a fear of flying. But as big as he was, I thought to myself, any situation he goes into in life, he would be claustrophobic, because he's larger than life than anywhere he goes. But Brendan, you probably, from the time that you can remember, played Madden video games, right? I mean, you probably never not knew of John Madden.
Yeah, I think I said earlier, my first ever Madden game was a computer game, a PC game. It was like Madden 2002. So, I mean, the graphics on that, completely different than what we're seeing now. But, I mean, it's kind of funny to look at the first Madden game that Tom Brady was in and look at his stats and look at the graphics of him and look at the current Madden game and look at the graphics of him. Pretty wild.
We will take a break. We'll come back and put a bow tie on it. You are listening to Kevin and Query with Brendan King in playing along with us. Mark Dykton there as well. It's 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Join Mark Patrick Seminars and stop smoking now without cravings, irritability, weight gain, or your money back.
Totally changed my life.
It's amazing. I don't have any cravings. You want to quit, but have found it impossible? This is the thing for you. I have absolutely no craving. It's the darndest thing I have ever seen in my life.
It's not for entertainment. It's for results.
Do it. It works. Period.
You've tried everything else. You need to come and try this.
Only $49.99 guaranteed. Because don't just cut down, but stop smoking. In addition, use hypnosis to lose all the weight and destroy unwanted cravings. Seminars Thursday, January 20th at the Holiday Inn Hotel in Carmel. Weight loss seminar 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. Stop smoking seminar 8 to 10 p.m. And Saturday, January 22nd at the La Quinta Inn and Suites Hotel in Indianapolis. Weight loss seminar 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Stop smoking seminar 2 to 4 p.m. Only $49.99 guaranteed. More info at markpatrickseminars.com.
Each win means more in the college football playoffs. That's why FanDuel Sportsbook is hooking new customers up with 30-1 enhanced odds on any team to win their semifinal game. Hey, it's Mark from Kevin and Query, and that means if you bet $5, you can win $150 on any team to make it to the final. Now, I'm looking at the championships right now. Give me Georgia to beat Michigan, and I really do not want to see Alabama again. So give me the Bearcats of Cincinnati to pull the upset. Just sign up on FanDuel Sportsbook using promo code MARK and make a deposit to claim your 30-1 enhanced odds. Pick any of those 4 teams to go to the finals, and you are in. There's no better place to bet the college football playoffs than on America's #1 sportsbook. The app is safe, secure, and easy to use. They got great offers and boosts every single day. And when you win, FanDuel will pay you back in as little as 2 hours. If you already have FanDuel Sportsbook, FanDuel's hooking up all customers with $50 when you refer a friend. Plus, your friend gets $50 on top of that. So don't miss your chance to win $150 on a $5 bet on the college football playoffs. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app or head to sportsbook.fanduel.com and sign up using promo code MARK to get 30-1 odds on any playoff team to win. That's promo code MARK, M-A-R-C, 21 and over and present in Indiana. New users only, $10 first deposit required. Must wager in designated offer market. Max bonus, $150. Restrictions apply. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-9-WITH-IT.
Hi, I'm Emmitt Smith, Pro Football Hall of Famer and 3-time champion.
Pro Football's all-time leading rusher Emmitt Smith talks about joint pain.
Trust me, I know about joint pain. Sure, I made it look easy, but if my body could speak, it would say, I'm in pain.
Are you living with chronic joint pain? Knees, hips, lower back, shoulders? Don't just assume the old treatments are the only treatments.
I've gone under the knife to get rid of pain, but now there are options, and you need to check them out.
Emmett's talking about QC Kinetics, exciting new natural biologic therapies that can repair and restore damaged tissue in your joints. New options now available here.
You can encourage your body to actually heal itself with the help of QC Kinetics.
Real relief with no surgery, no drugs, no downtime. Call the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics for regenerative restorative treatments with lasting relief.
But now, you and I, we have help. QC Kinetics.
Call QC Kinetics, 463-235-7160. That's 463-235-7160. QC Kinetics, 235-7160.
Did you know Amazon provides ways of working that fit your lifestyle? They know you value your time outside of work, juggling family, school, friends, or other activities. That's why they offer a variety of shifts that work for you. There are full-time, part-time, and even temporary opportunities that can work with your schedule, with great starting pay and sign-on bonuses. If you want a career that fits and adapts to your lifestyle, head to Amazon.com/apply. Amazon is a proud equal opportunity employer.
The Pacers return home to take on the Charlotte Hornets this evening at 6:30 on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. It's Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
While I'm sitting here, it dawned on me that during the commercial breaks, I can't hear Mark and Brendan. They're back in the studio by themselves, and I'm here on site. So, Mark, I'll ask you to confess Mark Dykton. I would assume that because you guys are of similar sports fandom, and you probably both like Gus Johnson a lot, and it dawned on me, I can't hear what's going on, so probably as soon as we go to break, I mean, I'll be the paranoid, insecure guy here. You're probably talking about me the entire time, right?
I mean, I'm sure you wish that was the case, but I mean, Brendan and I will talk about you over Shamrock Shakes later, but that'd be the extent.
Yeah,
no, you're in the clear. You're in the clear. No, I mean, hey, your takes on Gus Johnson are your own. Some may disagree, but it is what it is.
But yeah, the Shamrock Shake take is egregious. Can't have that.
What do you mean? You like Shamrock Shake?
No, I mean, I kind of just playing the joke. Yeah, there are. I mean, it's all right.
Do they still do Shamrock Shakes?
They do. But they come back. The thing is, they come back at like the start of February now.
Yeah. They open the window up a little bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's like grocery stores and like a Meijer or a Target putting out their Christmas stuff in October.
Yeah, no question. Now, of the stuff that McDonald's strategically does to increase interest because of limited availability, I will admit now, as a younger guy, I was a sucker for some McRibs, man. I loved the McRib. Now, I think probably what I was eating was like raccoon or something. I don't know, but man, the McRib was so good. I could kill the McRib.
I wrote an English paper on the McRib. We had in high school. We had to do it was like a Valentine's Day thing. You had to write about something you love. So I wrote about the McRib, and it was revealed at the very end that it was talking about the McRib the whole time.
Can I say something? I've never eaten a McRib. Jake, can you please give me a glance at what a McRib is like?
I would love to do that. Thank you for allowing me that opportunity.
And thank you for the info.
Let me tell you what. Mark wrote a paper about it, so let me verbalize the McRib, and then I will allow Mark to pick up the loose ends where I left off.
Okay.
The McRib, essentially, is a soft and buoyant seeded bun, almost like I don't know how you would describe the breading itself, but in between it is what is led to believe to be a rib meat, which is actually just a soft and easily dissolvable meat that is completely saturated and lathered in a thick but sweet and tangy barbecue sauce with like 5 very bleached white strips of onion in it that are optional with the sandwich itself. It is essentially nothing more than a traveling mechanism to get barbecue sauce from your hand to your mouth. Mark Dykton, your thoughts?
I completely agree. It's delicious. I love it, but I haven't had them in a while. It's been a few years now.
Is the McRib back?
I don't know. I think they had a sign for it that it was back for a while, but it's so infrequent. They say it's back.
Yeah.
It's like, why don't you just leave it? What do you?
Yeah, I think we got to the point where it never really left after a while. I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know. It's kind of like I guess it's kind of like me filling in, on the fan. Like after a while, it just kind of never left. But the wonderful thing about it too is I think it comes with only like 1,600 milligrams of sodium and 942 calories. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you take a couple of those up to turn 3 at the Speedway, and you're set for the day.
I'm set for the month if I do that. I can assure you of that. Although right now, I mean, what am I to say? I'm living on SpaghettiOs and Pop-Tarts, right?
Yeah, so your little notes that you described earlier with the pop quiz questions, do you have like Pop-Tart pieces all over those?
I do. You know what? I've actually got the little Eufy floor vacuum.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I'm not going to sweep my floors myself. I have occasionally, when I get really bored, I prop my Lazy Boy up, which then elevates the footrest so that the little vacuum can go underneath it and go all around my Lazy Boy and get all of the detritus from around me from the things that I've eaten. So yeah, it's been. Listen, I've redone my place 4 times in the last 3 days.
Yeah,
but it is what it is.
Well, that's what you do when you're stuck to your place.
That's exactly right. Hey, we've had a lot of fun today. Again, thanks to Stephen Holder for joining us and talking about the Carson Wentz situation. And folks, I realize and I appreciate the fact that it does get a little bit laborious and it gets repetitive discussing constantly the COVID-19 protocols. It's the world we live in. And, it was a fascinating saga that continues when you have your franchise quarterback kind of rolling that dice and playing the numbers and playing the odds of being able to stay healthy. And it looks like we'll be able, in Carson Wentz's case, you hope that he stays asymptomatic. And that is the question that we're going to have to watch. But I appreciate everybody partaking in and listening to that conversation with Stephen Holder, Scott Agnes as well from the Pacers. Brittany, you got big plans for the rest of the day? It's supposed to be like 35 and raining all day.
Yeah, not really any big plans. You're at, well, I guess since you have COVID, you can't really do much for NYE, right?
Yeah, and is that tomorrow night or is that Saturday?
Friday night.
Or Friday night, yeah. I would say I'm still in the protocol at that point. And again, I don't know. I tested positive Sunday. I first had symptoms Thursday. I really feel like I'm trending towards asymptomatic at this point, but I want to be diligent. I don't want to put anybody in risk and jeopardy. So I guess a lot of that just depends on how my testing goes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, Jake, I do want to tease this. Indiana Sports Talk, which is a show I work on with the legendary coach Bob Lovell. We're going to have the Indiana Sports Talk year-end special, a little year in review, Friday and Saturday night, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. It's going to air first on WIBC. You will hear it soon on The Fan, but on WIBC, 10 until midnight, Friday and Saturday night, the Indiana Sports Talk year-end special. Friday, we're looking back at high school sports. Saturday, we're looking back at collegiate and professional sports. That includes racing. And, Jake, we had you on the show for a couple long interviews that have now been broken up into segments, and obviously a lot to talk about in 2021, but pretty excited for all that to air.
And I appreciate that you gave me the opportunity to say goodbye and reflect upon some of the great people in racing that we lost over the course of the year. Mark Dykton, what do we have lined up in terms of the show for tomorrow?
Well, we're going to recap the latest episode of Hard Knocks with director Steve Trout tomorrow. We'll also get some gambling tips from Joe Wiz. We'll see how he comes back from his horrible tweet about the Patriots.
Oh, yes.
So we'll see how that goes, and then we'll also have some more sports talk.
I've not talked to the Wiz since my last show with Kevin, so I'm looking forward to catching up on that tweet. That all comes your way tomorrow, 7 to 10 a.m. on The Fan. Jake Query, I'm Brendan King with Mark Dykton. Scotty J around the horn. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. We are back with you 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.